You have noticed that the more you try to force your healing, the sicker you feel. It seems like every medicine, every new technique, every desperate effort only increases your anxiety and exhaustion. Buddhist monks discovered thousands of years ago that your body already knows exactly how to heal itself, but your agitated mind is blocking this natural process. When you stop fighting against your symptoms and start observing them with gentle curiosity, something extraordinary happens. Your nervous system relaxes, your breathing deepens, and your body finally gets to do what it has always known how to do. True healing does not come from adding more things, but from removing the obstacles you created yourself through fear and resistance. Today, you will learn the ancient Buddhist teachings that transform your body into your greatest ally, not your enemy. Subscribe to the channel, leave your like and comment from which part of the world you are watching, get comfortable and relax. Let us begin. There is an ancient story told in the monasteries of Tibet about a physician who possessed no medicines, no herbs, no potions, yet healed more people than all the doctors in the kingdom combined. When the emperor summoned this mysterious healer to the palace and demanded to know his secret, the physician smiled gently and said only this: "I teach people to remember what their bodies have always known. I remind them of the healing that lives within." Tonight, as you begin this journey into the heart of Buddhist teachings on natural healing, you are about to discover what that ancient physician understood. You are about to remember something profound, something that has been whispered in meditation halls and mountain temples for thousands of years. Your body already knows how to heal itself. Your mind already possesses the power to restore balance. Your spirit already holds the key to wholeness. The wisdom you seek is not something you must acquire from outside yourself. It is something you must remember from within. In this very moment, as you settle into these words and allow yourself to be present, healing has already begun. This is not metaphor or wishful thinking. This is the fundamental truth that Buddhist masters have understood since the time of the Buddha himself. When Siddhartha Gautama sat beneath the Bodhi tree 2,500 years ago, he did not just discover the nature of suffering, he discovered the nature of healing. He saw with crystalline clarity that the root of all illness lies not primarily in the body, but in the mind. He understood that the way we think, the way we hold our experiences, the way we relate to ourselves and the world creates either the conditions for sickness or the conditions for health. This insight revolutionized not just spiritual practice, but the entire understanding of what it means to be well. Consider for a moment the extraordinary intelligence of your body. Right now, without any conscious effort on your part, your heart is beating approximately 60 to 100 times per minute, pumping blood through 60,000 miles of blood vessels. Your lungs are exchanging oxygen and carbon dioxide with perfect efficiency. Your digestive system is breaking down food into nutrients and energy. Your immune system is identifying and eliminating thousands of potential threats. Your nervous system is processing millions of bits of sensory information every second. All of this happens without you having to think about it, without you having to manage it, without you even being aware of most of it. This is the healing intelligence that lives within you, the same intelligence that knows how to close a wound, how to fight an infection, how to maintain the delicate balance of countless systems working in harmony. Buddhist teachings point us toward a profound recognition that when we interfere with this natural intelligence through stress, worry, resistance, and mental turbulence, we create obstacles to our own healing. When we align ourselves with this intelligence through mindfulness, compassion, acceptance, and inner peace, we remove those obstacles and allow the body to do what it naturally does best: heal, restore, renew, balance. This is not about rejecting modern medicine or pretending that all illness can be cured through meditation alone. This is about understanding that healing is not just a physical process, but a whole being process that involves body, mind, and spirit working together in harmony. There is a teaching story from ancient China about a woman who suffered from chronic pain that no physician could cure. She visited doctor after doctor, tried remedy after remedy, but nothing brought relief. Finally, in desperation, she made the long journey to a remote monastery where a monk was said to possess healing wisdom. When she arrived and explained her condition, the monk listened with great compassion. Then he asked her a simple question: "When did you stop breathing fully?" The woman was confused by this strange question. "I breathe all the time," she protested, "otherwise I would be dead." The monk smiled gently. "You breathe enough to survive," he said, But when did you stop breathing enough to truly live? When did you stop allowing breath to reach into all the hidden places inside you? When did you start holding yourself so tightly that life itself could no longer flow freely through you? These questions struck the woman like lightning. In that instant, she realized that for years, ever since a great loss she had experienced, she had been holding her breath, tightening her body, armoring herself against feeling. The pain in her body was not just physical, it was the manifestation of years of emotional holding, of grief unexpressed, of life force constrained. The monk taught her simple breathing practices, taught her how to soften and allow, taught her how to feel what she had been avoiding. Within months, the pain that had plagued her for years began to dissolve. This story illustrates one of the most important principles in Buddhist healing, that our bodies tell the story of our inner lives. What we hold in our minds and hearts eventually manifests in our physical form. Modern science is now confirming what Buddhist masters have taught for millennia. Research in psychoneuroimmunology has demonstrated beyond doubt that our thoughts and emotions directly affect our immune system, our hormonal balance, our nervous system, and virtually every aspect of our physical health. Studies have shown that chronic stress suppresses immune function, that meditation can alter gene expression, that mindfulness practices reduce inflammation, that compassion meditation increases positive immune responses. The mind and body are not separate entities. They are one integrated system, constantly communicating, constantly influencing each other. When you change your mind, you literally change your body at the cellular level. The Buddha himself spoke extensively about the relationship between mind and body. In the Satipatthana Sutta, one of the foundational texts on mindfulness, he taught 4 foundations of awareness: mindfulness of body, mindfulness of feelings, mindfulness of mind, and mindfulness of mind objects. This teaching recognizes that true healing requires awareness at all these levels. We cannot heal the body while ignoring the emotions. We cannot heal the emotions while remaining unconscious of our thought patterns. We cannot transform our thought patterns without understanding the fundamental nature of mind itself. Buddhist healing is always holistic, always recognizing the interconnection of all aspects of our being. As you continue reading these words, allow yourself to drop more fully into your body. Notice how you are sitting or lying right now. Can you feel the places where your body makes contact with what supports it? Can you sense the temperature of the air against your skin? Can you become aware of your breathing without trying to change it? This simple act of bringing awareness to your physical experience is already healing. You are beginning to bridge the gap between mind and body that modern life has created. You are starting to inhabit yourself more fully. In Buddhist understanding, one of the primary causes of illness is dissociation, the habit of living primarily in our heads, disconnected from the wisdom of our bodies. When we return to embodied awareness, when we come home to the felt sense of being alive in this moment, healing naturally begins. There is another teaching story, this one from Thailand, about a young monk who developed a mysterious illness that caused him great suffering. His teacher, a wise abbot, did not immediately send him to doctors or give him herbs. Instead, he instructed the young monk to spend 1 hour each day simply sitting and observing his pain with complete attention but without judgment, without trying to make it go away, without telling stories about it, just pure, open awareness directed toward the sensations themselves. The young monk protested that this seemed useless, that surely he needed treatment, not just observation. But the abbot insisted, so the monk reluctantly began the practice. At first, sitting with his pain was excruciating. His mind rebelled, wanted to escape, wanted to do anything but stay present with discomfort. But gradually, something remarkable began to happen. As he observed the sensations with patient attention, he noticed that what he had been calling pain was actually a constantly changing river of different sensations. There were moments of sharp intensity, followed by moments of softness. There were areas of heat and areas of coolness. There were sensations of pressure, tingling, throbbing, each distinct and constantly shifting. What he had been experiencing as a solid, unchanging block of suffering was actually a dynamic, flowing process. Even more surprisingly, he began to notice that much of his suffering came not from the sensations themselves, but from his resistance to them, his fear of them, his stories about what they meant. When he could rest in pure awareness of the sensations without these layers of mental reactivity, the suffering diminished significantly. Within several weeks of this practice, the illness resolved itself completely. The young monk had learned one of the most profound lessons in Buddhist healing, that awareness itself is medicine. This principle, that conscious awareness has healing power, runs through all Buddhist approaches to health and well-being. In Western medicine, we tend to think of healing as something we do to the body, some intervention we apply from outside. We take a pill, we perform a surgery, we apply a treatment. Buddhist medicine recognizes that while external interventions certainly have their place, the most fundamental healing happens when we bring the light of awareness to what is occurring within us. Awareness is not passive, it is an active, transformative force. When we truly see something, when we hold it in the spacious embrace of mindful attention, it begins to change. This is not magic. This is the nature of consciousness itself. Think about a time when you were upset about something and a good friend simply listened to you with complete non-judgmental presence. They didn't try to fix your problem or give you advice. They simply held space for your experience with loving attention. Do you remember how healing that felt? This is the power of awareness. When we bring this same quality of loving, accepting attention to our own inner experience, including physical sensations and symptoms, we create the conditions for transformation. We stop fighting ourselves. We stop adding the suffering of resistance to whatever we are already experiencing. We allow the natural intelligence of our being to do its work. The Buddhist path to natural healing begins with this fundamental shift in relationship. Instead of treating our bodies as machines that have broken down and need fixing, we begin to relate to them as wise teachers, as allies in our spiritual journey, as manifestations of the same consciousness that animates all of life. Our symptoms are not just problems to be eliminated, they are messengers bringing important information. They are invitations to pay attention, to make changes, to come back into balance. When we learn to listen to these messages with respect and curiosity rather than fear and resistance, we open ourselves to profound healing. In the monasteries of Japan, there is a practice called body scanning meditation that has been taught for centuries and is now being used in hospitals and clinics around the world. The practice is simple but profound. You bring your attention systematically to every part of your body, from the crown of your head to the tips of your toes, simply noticing whatever sensations are present without trying to change anything. This practice cultivates several qualities essential for healing. First, it develops intimate familiarity with your body, so you become more sensitive to subtle changes and early warning signs. Second, it trains you to be present with discomfort without immediately reacting, which reduces the stress response that often makes symptoms worse. Third, it helps release chronic tension and holding patterns that you may not even be aware of. Fourth, it reconnects you with the miracle of embodied existence, which naturally generates gratitude and care for this precious vehicle you have been given. As we embark on this journey together through the Buddhist teachings on natural healing, you will discover practical wisdom that you can apply immediately to support your well-being. You will learn specific practices for working with pain, for reducing stress, for cultivating the inner conditions that allow healing to flourish. You will hear stories of transformation that will inspire and guide you. You will explore the fundamental principles that underlie all Buddhist approaches to health, but more than anything, you will be invited into a new relationship with yourself, one based on kindness, awareness, and trust in your own inherent wholeness. The Buddha taught that all beings possess Buddha nature, the fundamental capacity for awakening and complete well-being. This is not something you have to create or achieve. It is what you already are beneath all the layers of conditioning, confusion, and suffering. Illness does not mean you have lost your Buddha nature or your fundamental wellness. It means that something is temporarily blocking the full expression of that wellness. The practice is not about fighting the illness, but about removing the blocks, about creating the inner and outer conditions that allow your natural healing capacity to flow freely. There is a beautiful metaphor used in Buddhist teachings to describe this understanding. Imagine that the sun is always shining, but sometimes clouds cover it. The practice is not about creating the sun. The sun is always there. The practice is about understanding the nature of clouds, learning to work skillfully with them, and discovering that they are not solid and permanent, but constantly shifting and ultimately transparent to the light that is always present. Your fundamental well-being is like the sun, always present, always radiating, always available. Illness and suffering are like the clouds, real in their temporary appearance, but not ultimately solid. solid, not fundamentally who you are, and subject to change when the conditions that create them change. This perspective is not about denying the reality of suffering or pretending that illness is not difficult. The Buddha's entire teaching began with the acknowledgement that suffering is real and must be faced honestly. But he also taught that suffering is not permanent, not unchanging, and most importantly, not the deepest truth of what we are. When we can hold both of these truths simultaneously, when we can be honest about our suffering while also remaining connected to our fundamental well-being, we create the perfect container for healing. We are neither denying our condition nor identifying completely with it. We are relating to it with wisdom and compassion. In the coming sections, you will explore 5 fundamental principles of Buddhist healing, each one building on the others to create a complete understanding of how to support your natural healing capacity. You will learn about the healing power of breath, about how presence itself is medicine, about the role of compassion in restoring health, about the importance of letting go, and about how acceptance transforms suffering. Each principle will be illuminated through teaching stories, practical applications, and a deep exploration of the wisdom that has guided Buddhist healers for thousands of years. You will discover that you already possess everything you need to support your own healing, that the power you seek has been with you all along, waiting patiently for you to remember it. The first principle of Buddhist natural healing is perhaps the most fundamental and yet the most overlooked in our modern world. It is the recognition that mind and body are not two separate things but one unified field of experience, constantly influencing each other, constantly creating each other. When ancient Buddhist texts speak of nama-rupa, which translates as mind-body or name and form, they are pointing to this essential unity. What happens in your mind directly affects what happens in your body. What happens in your body directly affects what happens in your mind. This is not philosophy or belief. This is observable, verifiable reality that you can explore in your own direct experience right now. Sit comfortably for a moment and bring to mind a memory of something that made you very angry. Perhaps someone betrayed you or treated you unfairly. Let yourself remember that situation vividly. Notice what happens in your body as you recall this memory. Do you feel your jaw tightening? Does your heart rate increase? Do your shoulders rise? Does your breathing become more shallow and rapid? Do you feel heat in your face or tension in your stomach? All of this happens even though the actual event is not occurring right now. It is only a memory, only a thought, yet your body responds as if it were real. This demonstrates the power of mind over body. Your thoughts literally create physiological changes, release hormones, alter your nervous system state, affect your immune function. Now let go of that memory and bring to mind something that fills you with peace and gratitude, perhaps a moment in nature or a loving interaction with someone dear to you, or a time when you felt completely at ease. Let yourself rest in this memory. Notice how different your body feels now. Your shoulders might soften, your breathing might deepen, your heart might feel warm and open, the tension might drain from your face. Again, nothing has changed in your external circumstances. You are sitting in the same place. But by changing your mental focus, you have completely changed your physiology. This is the mind-body connection in action. In Buddhist psychology, there is a teaching about the 5 aggregates that make up our experience: form, feeling, perception, mental formations, and consciousness. These are not separate, stacked layers, but interpenetrating aspects of one unified process. Form refers to the physical body and material reality. Feeling refers to the pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral tone of each experience. Perception is the recognition and interpretation of what is happening. Mental formations include all the thoughts, emotions, intentions, and reactions that arise. Consciousness is the basic awareness that knows all of this. The crucial insight is that all 5 aggregates are constantly conditioning each other. A change in one creates changes in all the others. This has profound implications for healing. If you are experiencing physical illness, it is never just physical. There are always emotional, perceptual, cognitive, and consciousness dimensions to the experience. Similarly, if you are experiencing mental or emotional suffering, it is never just mental. It always has physical manifestations. When Buddhist healers approach illness, they never treat just the symptom. They look at the whole person, the whole pattern of how these 5 aggregates are interacting, and they seek to restore balance at all levels simultaneously. There is a teaching story from ancient India about a wealthy merchant who developed terrible headaches that no physician could cure. He tried every treatment available, spent vast amounts of money on healers and medicines, but nothing helped. Finally, he heard of a Buddhist monk who lived in a forest hermitage and was known for wisdom about about healing. The merchant made the journey and found the monk sitting in meditation. When the monk finally opened his eyes, the merchant immediately began describing his headaches in great detail, explaining all the treatments he had tried and begging for help. The monk listened quietly and then asked a simple question: "Tell me about your business." The merchant was confused. What did his business have to do with his headaches? But he began to explain. He described how competitive his field was, how he constantly worried about losing money, how he was always thinking 3 steps ahead, planning, calculating, worrying. The monk nodded. "Tell me about your relationships," he said next. Again, the merchant was puzzled but complied. He described how little time he had for his family, how he was always distracted when he was with them, how his mind was constantly elsewhere. "And tell me about your sleep," the monk continued. The merchant admitted he rarely slept well, his mind churning with concerns and plans even in the middle of the night. The monk smiled gently. "Your headaches are not a head problem. They are a whole life problem. Your mind has been racing without rest for years, never pausing, never at peace. Your body has been flooded with stress hormones constantly. Your nervous system has forgotten how to relax. Your relationships lack the nourishment that feeds the heart. Your sleep offers no true rest. The pain in your head is your body's desperate cry for a different way of living. We could give you medicine to suppress the pain, but that would be like disconnecting a fire alarm without putting out the fire. What you need is not treatment for your head. What you need is transformation of how you live." The monk taught the merchant meditation practices for calming the mind, taught him about living with presence instead of always being 3 steps ahead, taught him about the importance of nourishing relationships and genuine rest. It took time, but gradually the merchant's headaches diminished and eventually disappeared entirely. What cured him was not medicine, but a fundamental change in the pattern of his life, a shift in how his mind and body were interacting. This story illustrates a central principle in Buddhist healing, that symptoms are often the body's wisdom trying to get our attention, trying to tell us that something in how we are living is out of balance. When we suppress symptoms without addressing the underlying imbalance, we may feel better temporarily, but we miss the opportunity for real healing. Buddhist healing always asks, what is this symptom trying to teach me? What in my life needs to change? What am I doing or thinking or feeling that is creating conditions for illness rather than conditions for health? Modern research in mind-body medicine has confirmed this Buddhist understanding with scientific precision. Studies have shown that chronic stress, which is primarily a mental and emotional state, has devastating effects on physical health. It suppresses immune function, making you more vulnerable to infections and cancer. It increases inflammation, which is implicated in virtually every chronic disease from heart disease to diabetes to Alzheimer's. It disrupts the gut microbiome, affecting everything from digestion to mood to immune function. It accelerates cellular aging by shortening telomeres, the protective caps on chromosomes. It increases blood pressure, blood sugar, and harmful cholesterol while decreasing beneficial cholesterol. The list of ways that chronic mental and emotional stress damages the body is staggering. Conversely, research has shown that practices that calm and focus the mind have measurable healing effects on the body. Meditation has been shown to reduce inflammation, improve immune function, lower blood pressure, improve heart health, reduce chronic pain, improve sleep, slow cellular aging, and enhance the body's ability to heal. Mindfulness practices have been successfully used to treat conditions ranging from anxiety and depression to chronic pain to digestive disorders to skin conditions. The emerging field of contemplative neuroscience has demonstrated that meditation literally changes the structure and function of the brain-strengthening areas associated with attention, emotional regulation, and compassion, while reducing activation in areas associated with stress and reactivity. The mind-body connection works in both directions. Just as your mental state affects your physical health, your physical state affects your mental state. When your body is tense, your mind becomes more agitated. When your body is relaxed, your mind naturally calms. This is why Buddhist healing practices always work with both body and mind simultaneously. They might use meditation to calm the mind, and they might also use yoga, tai chi, or qigong to relax the body. They might use loving kindness practice to cultivate positive emotions, and they might also use herbal medicine to support physical function. The approach is always holistic, recognizing that you cannot heal one aspect of your being while neglecting the others. One of the most powerful demonstrations of the mind-body connection comes from studies of the placebo effect. When people believe they are receiving effective treatment, even if they are actually receiving an inert substance, they often experience real, measurable healing. Pain decreases, symptoms improve, objective medical tests show changes. This is not imagination or wishful thinking. This is the mind's ability to activate the body's healing mechanisms through belief and expectation. Buddhist teachings have always recognized this power of mind, teaching that faith and confidence in healing activate inner resources that promote recovery. Interestingly, the opposite is also true. When people are told they are receiving a harmful substance, even if it is actually inert, they often develop negative symptoms. This nocebo effect demonstrates how fear and negative expectation can create illness. This is why Buddhist healers have always emphasized the importance of cultivating positive, hopeful states of mind while facing illness. Not blind optimism that denies reality, but grounded confidence that the body possesses remarkable healing capacity and that recovery is possible. There is a practice in Tibetan Buddhism called Medicine Buddha meditation that beautifully illustrates the principle of mind-body healing. In this practice, you visualize a radiant blue Buddha who represents the healing power of enlightened mind. You imagine this Buddha above your head, radiating brilliant healing light. You visualize this light pouring down through your body, filling every cell with healing energy, dissolving all disease, clearing all obstacles to health. Then you imagine that you and the Medicine Buddha become one, that you merge completely, that your body becomes the body of the Medicine Buddha, radiant and perfectly healthy. From a scientific perspective, what is happening in this practice? You are using visualization and imagination to activate your body's healing systems. The vivid imagery of healing light and perfect health creates positive expectation and belief, which triggers the release of beneficial neurochemicals. The meditation itself calms the nervous system, reducing stress hormones and allowing healing resources to be deployed. The sense of merging with the Medicine Buddha connects you to a deep sense of wholeness and well-being that exists beyond your current symptoms. All of this supports real physiological healing, but the practice goes deeper than just its physiological effects. It is also training your mind to shift its identification. Instead of seeing yourself primarily as a sick person, as your illness, you practice identifying with the Buddha nature within you, with fundamental wholeness and health that is your deepest nature. This shift in identification is itself transformative. You begin to relate to your illness differently. Instead of being your entire identity, it becomes something you are experiencing, but not what you fundamentally are. This creates space, reduces the suffering that comes from identifying with illness, and opens possibilities for healing. The mind-body connection also means that how you think about your illness matters profoundly. If you relate to your body as an enemy that has betrayed you, if you see your symptoms as terrible misfortunes that should not be happening, if you fill your mind with fear and catastrophic thinking about worst-case scenarios, you create stress, tension and resistance that interfere with healing. Your body receives the message that it is in danger, that it cannot be trusted, that something is terribly wrong. This activates the stress response, which diverts resources away from healing and repair toward immediate survival. But if you can relate to your body with kindness and compassion, if you can see your symptoms as your body's intelligent response to challenging circumstances, if you can hold your illness with acceptance while also having confidence in healing, you create very different internal conditions. Your body receives the message that it is safe, that it is working as best it can, that it deserves care and support. This allows the parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and digest system to activate. This is the state in which healing happens most effectively. Cellular repair accelerates, immune function improves, inflammation decreases, regeneration proceeds optimally. Buddhist teachings offer a middle way between two extremes that both interfere with healing. One extreme is identification with illness, where you see yourself primarily as a sick person, and your illness becomes your identity. This creates a kind of attachment to being ill that can actually perpetuate the condition. The other extreme is denial of illness, where you refuse to acknowledge that you are sick and push yourself as if nothing were wrong. This ignores important messages from your body and can lead to worsening of your condition. The middle way is acknowledging your illness honestly while not identifying with it completely. You recognize that you are experiencing illness, but you are not the illness. You take appropriate action to support healing while also maintaining connection to your fundamental well-being. There is a teaching from Zen Buddhism about not dwelling in extremes. A monk asked a master, "When I am sick, how should I think about it?" The master replied, "Don't make it too big. Don't make it too small. Don't identify with it completely. Don't ignore it completely. Simply be present with what is, respond skillfully, and trust the process." This is the wisdom of the middle way applied to illness. You take your condition seriously enough to address it properly. You don't take it so seriously that it becomes your entire reality. As you begin to understand and work with the mind-body connection, you start to see that healing is not something that happens to you, but something you participate in. You are not a passive recipient of healing, but an active agent in creating the conditions for healing. Your thoughts, your emotions, your attitudes, your beliefs, your practices, all of these are either supporting healing or interfering with it. This is empowering because it means you are not helpless in the face of illness. You have real influence over your healing process through how you work with your mind. This does not mean you can cure every illness through positive thinking or that you are to blame if you do not heal. Some conditions are beyond what mind-body practices alone can address. Some illnesses require medical intervention. Buddhist healing has always recognized this and has historically worked hand in hand with conventional medicine. The point is not that mind is all-powerful and can cure anything. The point is that mind is powerful and can significantly influence your healing process, your quality of life, and your relationship to whatever you are experiencing. In the next section, we will explore the second principle of Buddhist natural healing, the healing power of breath. You will discover that the simple act of breathing, which you do approximately 20,000 times each day without thinking about it, is actually one of the most powerful healing tools available to you. You will learn specific breathing practices that calm the nervous system, reduce pain, strengthen immunity, and create the optimal internal conditions for healing. You will understand why every Buddhist contemplative tradition emphasizes breath awareness as fundamental practice. For now, simply notice that you are breathing. Feel the gentle rise and fall of your belly or chest. Recognize that with each breath, you are taking in life itself, receiving the gift of existence, participating in the universal rhythm that connects all living beings. This breath right now is already healing you. The second principle of Buddhist natural healing centers on something so simple and so ordinary that we almost completely overlook its profound healing power: breath. You have been breathing since the moment you were born. You will breathe until the moment you die. In between these 2 points, you will take approximately 600 million breaths, each one bringing life-giving oxygen into your body and carrying away waste products. Breathing happens automatically, unconsciously, continuously. And yet ancient Buddhist healers discovered something remarkable about breath that modern science is only now beginning to fully appreciate. Breathing is the bridge between body and mind, between conscious and unconscious, between voluntary and involuntary. And because it occupies this unique position, breath is the most direct and powerful tool you have for influencing your health and well-being. In Buddhist texts, there is a sutra entirely devoted to breath awareness called the Anapanasati Sutta, which translates as the discourse on the full awareness of breathing. The Buddha taught this to his monks and called it a practice that leads to the highest attainments, to perfect health of body and mind, to liberation itself. He said that mindful breathing, when developed and pursued, brings the 4 foundations of mindfulness to completion. He said it brings the 7 factors of enlightenment to completion. He said it leads to true knowledge and liberation. This is an extraordinary claim. How can something as simple as paying attention to breathing be so powerful? The answer lies in understanding what breath actually does and what happens when we bring conscious awareness to it. First, breathing is the only function of the autonomic nervous system that we can control consciously. Your heartbeat, your digestion, your hormone secretion, all of these automatic functions usually happen outside conscious control. But breathing is different. It happens automatically when you are not thinking about it, but you can also take conscious control of it anytime you wish. This makes breath the doorway through which you can access and influence your entire autonomic nervous system. Your autonomic nervous system has 2 main branches: the sympathetic nervous system, which activates when you face danger or stress, preparing you to fight or flee, and the parasympathetic nervous system, which activates when you are safe and relaxed, allowing your body to rest, digest, and heal. In modern life, most people are chronically overactivated in their sympathetic nervous system, constantly in a low-grade state of fight or flight, which is devastating to health over time. One of the most reliable ways to activate the parasympathetic nervous system and shift your body into healing mode is through specific breathing practices. When you breathe slowly and deeply, especially when you extend your exhalation so it is longer than your inhalation, you directly stimulate the vagus nerve, which is the main nerve of the parasympathetic nervous system. This triggers what is called the relaxation response, a cascade of physiological changes that are the opposite of the stress response. Your heart rate slows, your blood pressure decreases, your muscles relax, your digestion improves, your immune function strengthens, stress hormones like cortisol decrease, while healing hormones like growth hormone and melatonin increase. All of this happens simply by changing how you breathe. There is a teaching story from the Zen tradition about a samurai warrior who suffered from terrible nightmares and insomnia after years of battle. He could not find peace even in sleep. His mind was constantly agitated, always on alert, unable to rest. He went to a Zen master seeking help. The master said, "Your problem is not in your mind. Your problem is in your breath. You breathe like a warrior, even when there is no battle. Your breath is high in your chest, fast, irregular, as if you are always preparing to fight. I will teach you to breathe like a Buddha, slow and deep and peaceful." The master taught the warrior a simple practice. Sit comfortably. Place one hand on your chest and one hand on your belly. Breathe in slowly through your nose, allowing your belly to expand so the lower hand rises while the upper hand remains relatively still. Breathe out slowly through your nose, allowing your belly to fall. Make the exhale slightly longer than the inhale. Continue for at least 5 minutes. The warrior practiced this daily. Within a few weeks, his nightmares ceased, his sleep deepened, his mind found peace. He had learned that by changing his breath, he could change his entire nervous system state. This story points to something you can verify in your own experience right now. Notice how you are breathing at this moment. Is your breath shallow or deep, fast or slow? Are you breathing into your chest or your belly? Is your exhale shorter, longer, or the same length as your inhale? Now intentionally shift to slow, deep belly breathing. Breathe in for a count of 4, allowing your belly to expand. Breathe out for a count of 6, allowing your belly to fall. Continue for 5 full breath cycles. Notice how different you feel after just these few breaths. This is the immediate power of conscious breathing. Different breathing patterns create different states of body and mind. Rapid, shallow chest breathing activates the stress response, triggering anxiety and tension even if there is no actual danger. Slow, deep belly breathing activates the relaxation response, creating calm and ease. Smooth, rhythmic breathing creates emotional stability and mental clarity. Holding the breath creates energy and focus, but also tension if done too long. Sighing releases tension. Breathing through the left nostril is cooling and calming. Breathing through the right nostril is heating and energizing. Buddhist practitioners have mapped this territory in intricate detail over thousands of years of experimentation and observation. In Tibetan Buddhism, there are elaborate practices called pranayama, which literally means life force control, though they are better understood as breath and energy practices. These practices use specific breathing patterns, visualization, and subtle energy work to clear blockages, balance elements, strengthen vitality, and support healing. One foundational practice is called the 9-round breathing, or 9 purification breaths. You alternate blocking one nostril and breathing slowly through the other, 3 rounds on each side, then 3 rounds breathing through both nostrils together. This practice is said to clear the energy channels of the body, balance the left and right aspects of the nervous system, and prepare the ground for healing and meditation. While these elaborate practices certainly have value, the Buddha himself emphasized something much simpler as the foundation, just mindful awareness of natural breath, not controlling or forcing breath, but simply paying close attention to it exactly as it is. Breathing in, you know you are breathing in. Breathing out, you know you are breathing out. If the breath is long, you know it is long. If it is short, you know it is short. You feel the breath entering and leaving your nostrils. You feel the rising and falling of your chest or belly. You notice the slight pause between inhale and exhale. You simply be present with the miracle of breathing. This simple practice of breath awareness has profound effects on health. First, it anchors you in the present moment, which immediately reduces anxiety and rumination, both of which stress the body and interfere with healing. When you are fully present with this breath, you cannot simultaneously be worrying about the future or regretting the past. Second, it develops concentration, the ability to maintain steady attention on a chosen object. This strengthens the prefrontal cortex and improves your ability to direct attention skillfully, which is essential for all other healing practices. Third, it creates a gap between stimulus and response, giving you the space to choose how to respond rather than react automatically. This reduces the stress and conflict that arise from reactivity. Fourth, and perhaps most importantly, breath awareness develops intimate familiarity with the changing nature of all experience. You notice that no two breaths are exactly the same. Each breath arises, unfolds, and passes away, unique and unrepeatable. This direct perception of impermanence, when deeply understood, transforms your relationship with everything, including illness and health. You see that nothing is fixed and solid. Everything is process, flow, constant change. Even chronic conditions have moments of more intensity and less intensity, never completely static. This recognition opens possibilities for healing because it reveals that your current state is not permanent, not your unchangeable identity. There is a beautiful teaching from Thich Nhat Hanh, the Vietnamese Zen master, about using breath to return to your body and establish true presence. He teaches a simple practice. Breathing in, I know I am breathing in. Breathing out, I know I am breathing out. After a few breaths, this can be shortened to simply in and out as you breathe. Then you can add, breathing in, I calm my body. Breathing out, I smile, and shorten to calming, smiling. This practice uses breath not just as an object of awareness, but as an opportunity to send messages of peace and kindness to your body with each breath. The practice can be extended to work directly with pain or illness. Breathing in, I am aware of my pain. Breathing out, I embrace my pain with compassion. This is not trying to make the pain go away through breathing. This is changing your relationship with the pain from resistance to acceptance, from fighting to allowing. And remarkably, this shift in relationship often leads to decrease in suffering even when the physical sensation remains. You discover that a large portion of your suffering comes not from the pain itself, but from your resistance to it, your fear of it, your story that it should not be there. Scientific research has confirmed the healing effects of breathing practices. Studies have shown that slow, deep breathing reduces blood pressure in people with hypertension, often as effectively as medication. Breathing practices reduce chronic pain by modulating pain pathways in the nervous system and changing how pain signals are processed in the brain. Pranayama has been shown to improve lung function in people with asthma, reduce symptoms of anxiety and depression, improve heart rate variability, which is a marker of nervous system health and resilience, reduce inflammation markers in the blood, and improve sleep quality. One particularly powerful breathing practice from the yogic tradition that has been adopted by many Buddhist practitioners is alternate nostril breathing. You use your thumb to close one nostril and breathe in slowly through the other nostril. Then you close that nostril with your finger and release the thumb, breathing out through the opposite nostril. Then breathe in through that same nostril, close it, and breathe out through the first nostril. Continue alternating in this pattern. This practice balances the left and right hemispheres of the brain, balances the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems, and creates a profound sense of calm and centeredness. Another powerful practice is coherent breathing, which means breathing at a rate of 5 breaths per minute, or 6 seconds in and 6 seconds out. This particular rhythm has been found to optimize heart rate variability and create resonance between heart, lungs, and brain. Just 10 minutes of breathing at this rhythm can shift your entire nervous system into a healing state that persists for hours afterward. Many people find that practicing coherent breathing twice daily, morning and evening, creates cumulative benefits that significantly improve their health and well-being. The breath also carries another profound healing element that Buddhist teachings have always emphasized: life force or vital energy, called prana in Sanskrit, ki or chi in Chinese, lung in Tibetan. While modern Western science does not have a perfect equivalent concept, research into bioelectromagnetic fields, fascia networks, and interoception is beginning to recognize that there are indeed subtle energetic dimensions to the body that influence health. Traditional Buddhist and yogic teachings say that breath is the primary carrier of this vital energy, and that by working consciously with breath, you can direct this energy to where it is needed for healing. This is the basis for practices like Qi Gong and Tai Chi, which combine breath with gentle movement to cultivate and circulate vital energy through the body. While these are Chinese Taoist practices, they have been adopted by many Buddhist traditions and align perfectly with Buddhist understanding of the mind-body energy continuum. Even if you are skeptical about concepts like Qi or Prana, you can still benefit immensely from these practices because they combine breath awareness with gentle movement, which has well-documented benefits for balance, flexibility, strength, circulation, and mental health. There is a practice in Zen Buddhism called breath counting that is often given to beginning students. It is deceptively simple but surprisingly challenging and powerful. You simply count your breaths from 1 to 10, then start over. 1 count for the inhale, 2 for the exhale, 3 for the next inhale, and so on to 10, then back to 1. If you lose count or get distracted, you simply start over at 1 with kindness and without judgment. This practice develops concentration, reveals how distracted the mind usually is, and cultivates patience and self-compassion as you gently bring yourself back again and again. What makes breath such a perfect vehicle for healing practice is that it is always available. You are always breathing. This means you always have access to this healing tool, regardless of where you are or what is happening. If you are in pain, you can breathe with the pain. If you are anxious, you can calm yourself with breath. If you are overwhelmed, you can anchor yourself with breath. If you are facing a medical procedure, you can steady yourself with breath. Breath becomes your reliable companion, your portable sanctuary, your constant reminder that you have agency and choice in how you meet each moment. The Buddha taught 16 steps of breath meditation in the Anapanasati Sutta, progressing from simple awareness of breathing to using breath as a vehicle for liberating insight. The early steps focus on calming and steadying body and mind through breath awareness. The middle steps use breath to investigate the nature of feelings and mental states. The later steps use breath to develop insight into impermanence, letting go, and liberation. This demonstrates that breath practice is not just a relaxation technique, but a complete path to healing and awakening. As you begin to work more consciously with your breath, you might notice that your breathing patterns reflect your habitual mental and emotional states. If you tend toward anxiety, your breath is likely often shallow and high in the chest. If you tend toward depression, your breath may be shallow and restricted. If you hold anger, your breath might be tight and forceful. These patterns are not just symptoms, they are also causes. Your restricted breath reinforces your restricted emotional state. But this means you can interrupt these patterns by consciously changing your breath. You can literally breathe yourself into different emotional and mental states. There is great wisdom in the traditional teaching that to change your life, start with changing your breath. When you change your breath, you change your nervous system state. When you change your nervous system state, you change your mental and emotional state. When you change your mental and emotional state, you change your perceptions and responses. When you change your perceptions and responses, you change your actions. When you change your actions, you change your life. And it all begins with something as simple as taking a slow, deep, conscious breath. In the next section, we will explore the third principle of Buddhist natural healing, the healing power of presence. You will discover that the quality of awareness you bring to each moment is itself transformative, that presence is not just a nice idea, but an active healing force. You will learn specific practices for cultivating presence and for bringing this healing awareness to every aspect of your life, including illness and pain. For now, return to your breath. Take 3 slow, deep breaths, feeling the air flowing in and out of your body. Notice how even this simple act brings you more fully into this moment, creates a little more space, offers a touch of peace. This is the healing power of breath, always available, waiting for your attention. The third principle of Buddhist natural healing is both the simplest and the most profound. It is the healing power of presence. In Pali, the language of the earliest Buddhist texts, the word for presence is sati, usually translated as mindfulness or awareness. But it is more than just paying attention. It is a quality of lucid, intimate, caring attention that meets each moment exactly as it is, without judgment, without reactivity, without the filters of past conditioning. This presence, this simple act of being fully here, is itself healing. Not because presence makes unpleasant things go away, but because it transforms your relationship with everything you experience, including illness, pain, and difficulty. In modern life, true presence is rare. Most of the time, we are not actually here. Our bodies are in one place while our minds are elsewhere, reliving the past or rehearsing the future, lost in fantasy or worry, judging or planning or analyzing. We eat meals without tasting them, listen to people without hearing them, walk through beautiful places without seeing them. We are like ghosts, haunting our own lives, never fully landing in any moment because we are always leaning toward the next moment. This chronic absence from our own experience has profound effects on health. When we are not present, we miss the early, subtle signals that something is wrong. We override our body's wisdom. We accumulate stress without noticing until it becomes overwhelming. We live in our heads, disconnected from the intelligence of our bodies. There is a teaching story from the Thai forest tradition about a monk who developed a serious illness. His teacher, Ajahn Chah, did not immediately give him medicine or advice. Instead, he asked the monk a simple question. When you eat, do you eat? When you walk, do you walk? When you sit, do you sit? The monk understood. He had been going through the motions of monastic life, while his mind was constantly elsewhere, worrying about his practice, judging himself, planning his future. He had not been truly present for months. His teacher was pointing him toward presence as the foundation of healing. The monk began practicing radical presence. When he ate, he gave his full attention to eating, to the colors and textures and flavors of his food, to the sensations of chewing and swallowing, to the gratitude for being nourished. When he walked, he felt each footfall, each shift of weight, the contact with the ground, the movement of air against his skin. When he sat, he was completely present with sitting, with the feeling of his body, with his breath, with the sounds and sensations of the moment. Gradually, his illness began to improve, not because presence had magically cured his physical condition, but because presence had changed everything about how he was inhabiting his life. He was no longer fighting himself, no longer at war with his experience. He had come home to himself, and in that homecoming, healing naturally occurred. This story points to something you can explore in your own experience. Right now, bring your full attention to your body, not thinking about your body, but actually feeling it from the inside. Can you feel your hands, your feet, the contact of your body with what supports it? Can you feel your breathing? Can you sense the energy, the aliveness in your body? This is presence. This is what it feels like to be here. Notice that presence itself feels good. There is a natural ease, a rightness, a sense of being at home that comes with simply being fully present. This is not a special state you have to create. This is what it feels like when you stop creating the tension of absence. Buddhist psychology teaches that much of our suffering comes from what is called papanka in Pali, which refers to the proliferating mental commentary that we add to our direct experience. Something happens, some sensation or perception, and immediately the mind begins spinning stories, making judgments, creating narratives. If we experience pain, the mind immediately starts, "This is terrible. This shouldn't be happening. What if it gets worse? What if it never goes away? This means something is seriously wrong. I can't handle this." And suddenly, what was a simple sensation has become an entire drama of suffering. Presence cuts through this proliferation. When you are truly present with pain, you discover it is just sensation, arising and passing, changing moment by moment. The suffering comes from the story, not from the sensation itself. There is a famous teaching from the Buddha about the two arrows. When you are struck by an arrow, there is pain. This is unavoidable. But then most people shoot themselves with a second arrow, the arrow of mental and emotional reactivity to the first arrow. They suffer twice, once from what is actually happening and once from their resistance to what is happening. Presence means feeling the first arrow fully without adding the second arrow. This does not mean the first arrow does not hurt. It means you are not multiplying your suffering through resistance and reactivity. Modern research in neuroscience and psychology has confirmed what Buddhist teachers have taught for millennia, that mindful presence has remarkable healing effects. Studies have shown that mindfulness meditation reduces activity in the default mode network of the brain, the network associated with mind wandering, rumination, and self-referential differential thinking. This reduction in default mode activity is associated with decreased anxiety and depression, improved mood, and better emotional regulation. Mindfulness has been shown to change the structure of the brain, increasing grey matter density in areas associated with attention, emotional regulation, and self-awareness. Mindfulness-based stress reduction, a program developed by Jon Kabat-Zinn based on Buddhist meditation practices, has been studied extensively and found to reduce chronic pain, decrease stress hormones, improve immune function, reduce inflammation, improve sleep, decrease symptoms of anxiety and depression, and improve quality of life in people with serious illnesses including cancer and heart disease. The mechanism is not mysterious. Presence reduces the stress response, activates the relaxation response, and allows the body's natural healing systems to work optimally. But presence is more than just a stress reduction technique. Presence is a way of meeting life with openness rather than defensiveness, with curiosity rather than judgment, with acceptance rather than resistance. When you bring presence to pain, you discover that pain is not solid and unchanging, but a flow of different sensations, constantly shifting in intensity, location, and quality. You discover that you can be present with quite difficult sensations without being overwhelmed by them. You find that you have more capacity than you thought, more resilience, more ability to be with what is. There is a practice in Vipassana meditation called noting that beautifully demonstrates the healing power of presence. When you notice any experience arising, you simply make a gentle mental note of what it is: thinking, feeling, hearing, pain, pleasure, planning, remembering. You are not trying to change anything, just acknowledging what is present. This simple act of noting creates a slight gap, a small space of awareness between you and the experience. In that gap, you discover that you are not your thoughts, not your feelings, not your sensations. You are the awareness that knows all of these. This is liberating. When you are not completely identified with your pain or your illness, you can relate to it differently. Another powerful presence practice comes from Zen Buddhism, where students are taught to just sit in meditation called Zazen. No technique, no method, no trying to get anywhere or achieve anything, just sitting with whatever arises, moment by moment, breath by breath. This radical acceptance of whatever is happening in your experience is profoundly healing. You stop fighting yourself. You stop trying to force yourself into some ideal state. You learn to be at peace with things as they are, which paradoxically often allows them to change naturally. The practice of presence can be brought to any activity. Thich Nhat Hanh teaches about washing dishes with presence, where washing dishes becomes not a chore to rush through, but an opportunity to be fully alive, to feel the warm water, to see the soap bubbles catch the light, to enjoy the simple satisfaction of making something clean. When you bring this quality of presence to everything you do, your whole life becomes healing practice. Eating with presence nourishes you more deeply. Walking with presence connects you to the earth and to your own aliveness. Even painful experiences, when met with presence, become less overwhelming. There is a beautiful phrase in Buddhist teachings: the healing power of non-judgmental awareness. When you can be present with your experience without labeling it as good or bad, without wishing it were different, without criticizing yourself for having this experience, something magical happens. The experience is allowed to be exactly what it is, which means it is allowed to flow, to change, to complete itself naturally. So much of our suffering comes from blocking the natural flow of experience through judgment and resistance. Presence removes these blocks and allows natural healing to proceed. Working with physical pain is one of the most powerful laboratories for developing presence. Pain has a way of commanding attention. When you are in pain, it is very difficult to ignore, to think your way out of, to transcend through mental gymnastics. Pain insists that you be present with it. Many people resist this, trying desperately to distract themselves from pain, to push it away, to pretend it is not there. But there is another way, taught in Buddhist meditation traditions for thousands of years. Turn directly toward the pain with gentle, curious, accepting awareness. This practice goes against all our instincts, which tell us to avoid pain at all costs. But if you can gather your courage and actually try it, you may discover something revolutionary. Sit or lie comfortably and locate the area of strongest pain or discomfort in your body. Instead of avoiding this area with your attention, gently direct your awareness toward it. Breathe into that area, imagining your breath flowing to the site of pain like a gentle, caring touch. Notice the actual sensations without the labels. Is it burning, throbbing, aching, sharp, dull? Does it stay constant or does it pulse and change? Is the boundary of the painful area clear or fuzzy? Can you find the precise center of the pain? As you investigate with gentle curiosity, you will likely notice that what you have been experiencing as pain, as if it were one solid, unchanging thing, is actually a complex, constantly shifting collection of different sensations. In this moment, it might be more intense. In the next moment, less so. The quality shifts, the location shifts subtly. Sometimes there are moments of relative ease, even in the midst of pain. This recognition that everything is changing, including pain, is itself healing. It breaks the sense of pain as permanent, as an unchangeable condition you will be trapped in forever. You may also notice, as you bring non-judgmental awareness to pain, that a significant portion of what you have been experiencing as suffering is actually your resistance to the pain, not the pain itself. The pain is one thing, the tightening against it, the fear of it, the anger about it, the story that it should not be there. All of this is additional suffering you are adding when you can simply be present with the raw sensation without all these layers of reactivity. The experience often becomes more bearable, not because the sensation has changed, but because you have removed the multiplication factor of resistance. There is a practice taught in some Tibetan Buddhist traditions called feeding the demon that offers a profound way to work with pain and illness through presence. In this practice, you imagine your pain or illness as a being, a demon. You ask it what it really needs, what it is trying to protect you from or show you. You feed it by giving it what it needs, not fighting it, but meeting it with compassion. This practice transforms your relationship with your symptom from adversarial to collaborative. You discover that symptoms often arise trying to help you, trying to get you to rest, to pay attention, to change something in how you are living. When you can listen to these messages with presence and respond with wisdom, healing becomes possible. Presence also means being present with the people who are supporting your healing. When you are truly present with a doctor, a therapist, a friend, the quality of connection deepens. You hear more clearly. You communicate more authentically. You receive support more fully. So many healing opportunities are missed because we are not fully present in the encounters that could help us. We are thinking about the next appointment, or worrying about what the person thinks of us, or rehearsing what we want to say next, and we miss the actual human connection that is available right now. The practice of presence is not about achieving some special state of consciousness or having extraordinary experiences. It is about being fully alive to the ordinary miracle of this moment. The warmth of the sun on your skin, the taste of water, the feeling of air filling your lungs, the sound of birds or traffic or silence, the sensation of being alive in a body. When you are truly present, you realize that this moment, exactly as it is enough. This is not resignation or settling for less. This is recognizing that the deepest satisfaction does not come from getting what you want, but from being fully present with what is. There is a Zen saying, before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. The activities are the same. What changes is the quality of presence you bring to them. An ordinary life lived with extraordinary presence becomes an extraordinary life. Difficult experiences met with presence become opportunities for growth and awakening. Illness faced with presence becomes a teacher rather than just a burden. As you develop your capacity for presence through regular meditation practice, you will likely notice changes in how you relate to everything, including health challenges. You become less reactive, less dramatic about difficulties. You develop trust in your capacity to meet whatever arises. You stop wasting energy fighting reality and instead direct that energy towards skillful response. You find moments of peace even in the midst of challenging circumstances. This is the healing power of presence, not fixing everything, but changing your relationship with everything. In the next section, we will explore the fourth principle of Buddhist natural healing, compassion as cure. You will discover that how you relate to yourself when you are suffering has profound effects on your healing process. You will learn that self-compassion is not self-indulgence, but a powerful form of medicine. You will explore practices for cultivating the kind of unconditional friendliness toward yourself that allows healing to flourish. For now, practice presence for just this moment. Feel yourself here, in this body, breathing, alive, reading these words. This is presence, this simple being here. And in this presence, healing is already happening. The fourth principle of Buddhist natural healing might surprise those who think of Buddhism primarily as a philosophy of detachment. This principle is compassion, particularly compassion directed toward yourself. In Pali, the word is karuna, which means the heart's response to suffering, the wish for suffering to cease, the motivation to relieve suffering wherever it is found, including in yourself. Buddhist teachings have always been clear. Compassion must include yourself, or it is incomplete. You cannot truly offer healing compassion to others if you are constantly attacking yourself with judgment, criticism, and self-rejection. And when you are ill or in pain, the quality of attention you bring to yourself, harsh or kind, significantly affects your healing process. Consider how you typically relate to yourself when you are sick or in pain. Do you become impatient, frustrated that your body is not functioning as you want? Do you judge yourself as weak or deficient? Do you push yourself to keep going, ignoring your body's signals that you need rest? Do you feel guilt or shame about being ill, as if you have failed somehow? Or perhaps you become frightened, catastrophizing about what your symptoms might mean, spiraling into anxiety about worst-case scenarios. All of these responses, though understandable, create stress, tension, and resistance that interfere with healing. They activate the sympathetic nervous system, trigger the release of stress hormones, and keep your body in a state of threat rather than safety. Now imagine a different way. Imagine relating to yourself when you are unwell the way a loving mother relates to a sick child, with tenderness, with patience, with the understanding that being sick is not a moral failing, but a natural part of being human, with the willingness to provide whatever comfort and care is needed, with confidence that healing will come in time, with the understanding that rest is not laziness, but necessary medicine. This is self-compassion, and research has shown that it has remarkable effects on both physical and emotional health. There is a teaching story from the Tibetan tradition about a nun who developed a painful chronic illness. She tried every treatment available without success. She became increasingly frustrated with her body, which she saw as betraying her, preventing her from doing the spiritual practices she valued. She would sit in meditation but spend the whole time fighting against her pain, creating elaborate visualizations to try to make it go away, tensing against every wave of discomfort. Her teacher observed this and finally said, "You are treating your body like an enemy." How can healing happen in the midst of war? The teacher gave the nun a new practice. Instead of fighting her pain, she was to place her hand over the area that hurt and speak to her body with compassion, as she would speak to a dear friend who was suffering. "I know this is difficult. I'm here with you. I care about what you are experiencing. You are doing the best you can. I will not abandon you." At first, this felt strange, even silly. But the nun continued the practice daily. Gradually, something profound shifted. Her body, which had felt like an enemy, began to feel like a companion, a fellow traveller through difficult terrain. The pain did not disappear, but her suffering around the pain decreased dramatically. And over time, as the inner conflict resolved, her physical symptoms actually did improve. This story illustrates one of the most important principles in mind-body healing, that the relationship you have with your body and with your symptoms significantly affects your healing process. When you are at war with yourself, when you are rejecting your body's experience, you create internal stress that diverts resources away from healing. But when you can be with yourself with compassion, accepting what is happening while also taking appropriate action to address it, you create internal safety that allows healing systems to function optimally. Kristen Neff, a researcher who has studied self-compassion extensively, identifies three components: self-kindness versus self-judgment, common humanity versus isolation, and mindfulness versus over-identification. Self-kindness means treating yourself with warmth and understanding when you suffer or fail rather than with harsh criticism. Common humanity means recognizing that suffering and imperfection are part of being human, that you are not alone in struggling. Mindfulness means holding painful feelings in balanced awareness rather than either suppressing them or being overwhelmed by them. All three elements are essential for healing. The Buddhist practice of metta, or loving-kindness meditation, is a powerful way to cultivate compassion for yourself and others. The traditional practice begins with directing loving wishes toward yourself. May I be safe. May I be healthy. May I be happy. May I live with ease. This might feel awkward at first, especially if you are used to being self-critical. But with regular practice, these phrases begin to shift something in how you relate to yourself. You are training your heart to include yourself in the circle of care and compassion. There is wisdom in beginning with yourself in metta practice. The Buddha taught that you could search the entire universe and not find anyone more deserving of your love and compassion than yourself. Not because you are more important than others, but because you are equally important. If you are constantly withholding kindness from yourself while offering it to everyone else, you are acting as if you are the one person in the universe who does not deserve compassion. This creates deep suffering and prevents genuine healing. After establishing loving kindness toward yourself, the practice gradually expands. You bring the same loving wishes to someone who has been kind to you, then to a neutral person, then even to someone difficult, and finally to all beings everywhere. May all beings be safe. May all beings be healthy. May all beings be happy. May all beings live with ease. This progressive expansion trains the heart in unconditional goodwill, which research has shown reduces stress, improves mood, increases positive emotions, decreases negative emotions, improves relationships, and even affects physical health markers like telomere length and immune function. Working specifically with illness, you can adapt the metta practice to direct compassion toward the part of your body that is suffering. Place your hand gently on or near the area of discomfort. Feel your hand as a gesture of kindness, of care. Breathe naturally and offer phrases like, "May you be at ease, may you heal, may you know you are cared for, may you be free from suffering." This is not trying to force healing through positive thinking. This is changing your relationship with your suffering from rejection to acceptance, from hostility to friendliness. Compassion also means recognizing when you need help and being willing to receive support. In many cultures, there is a tendency to value independence and self-sufficiency so highly that asking for help feels like weakness or failure. But illness often requires support from others, and being able to receive this support with grace is itself a form of healing. Buddhist teachings on interdependence remind us that we are always supported by countless beings, that independence is actually a myth, that we are all deeply interconnected and mutually dependent. There is a practice in Tibetan Buddhism called Tonglen, which means giving and receiving or sending and taking. It is a compassion practice that works directly with suffering. As you breathe in, you imagine breathing in the suffering of yourself or others, imagining it as dark, heavy smoke. As you breathe out, you send out healing, relief, whatever is needed, imagining it as bright, cool light. This practice seems counterintuitive. Why would you want to breathe in suffering? But the practice is not about literally taking on illness. It is about being willing to be present with suffering, yours and others, without turning away, without needing it to be different than it is. What makes Tonglen so powerful for healing is that it directly counters the tendency to contract around pain, to armor yourself against difficulty. When you practice breathing in suffering and breathing out relief, you develop the capacity to remain open and soft, even in the presence of discomfort. This openness, this willingness to be with what is itself healing. It prevents the secondary suffering that comes from resistance. It allows you to meet your experience with courage and grace. Scientific research has confirmed that self-compassion and compassion practices have measurable effects on health. Studies have shown that people high in self-compassion have lower levels of inflammation, which is implicated in virtually all chronic diseases. They have healthier cardiovascular responses to stress. They engage in healthier behaviors like better diet and exercise. They are more likely to seek medical care when needed rather than ignoring symptoms. They cope better with chronic illness and experience better quality of life. They have stronger immune responses. The evidence is clear. Being kind to yourself is not indulgence. It is intelligent care that supports healing. Compassion also extends to accepting your limitations when you are ill. This can be one of the hardest aspects of dealing with illness, especially for people who are used to being capable and productive. Illness often forces you to slow down, to do less, to accept help, to acknowledge that you are not superhuman. For many people, this triggers feelings of guilt, shame, or inadequacy. But from the perspective of Buddhist healing, accepting limitation is not defeat. It is wisdom. It is recognizing the truth of your current condition and responding appropriately rather than pushing yourself in ways that delay healing. There is a teaching from the Buddhist tradition about right effort. Right effort does not mean maximum effort or pushing yourself to your limits. It means appropriate effort, wise effort, the Goldilocks zone of neither too tight nor too loose. When you are ill, right effort might mean resting more, doing less, being gentle with yourself. This is not laziness. This is intelligent response to current conditions. Your body is using enormous amounts of energy to heal. When you push yourself to maintain your usual activities, you divert resources away from healing. When you can rest with self-compassion, you allow healing to proceed optimally. Cultivating compassion for yourself also means examining the ways you might be contributing to your own suffering through unhealthy patterns of thought and behavior, not with harsh self-judgment, but with honest, caring awareness. Are you constantly stressed because you say yes to too many commitments? Are you neglecting your body's needs for good nutrition, adequate sleep, regular movement? Are you holding grudges that create ongoing stress? Are you engaging in behaviors you know are harmful? Compassionate self-examination allows you to see these patterns clearly and make changes from a place of care rather than shame. The practice of self-compassion becomes especially important when dealing with chronic illness or conditions that do not resolve quickly. It is easy to be patient with yourself for a few days when you have a cold. It is much harder to maintain compassion when illness stretches on for months or years. There can be a tendency to blame yourself, to think you must be doing something wrong if you are not healing faster. But illness does not always follow a predictable timeline, and some conditions require long-term management rather than quick cure. Compassion in these circumstances means accepting the reality of your situation while continuing to care for yourself with kindness day after day. There is a beautiful teaching from Pema Chodron, a Western Buddhist nun, about treating yourself like someone you love. She asks, "What would you do for someone you love who was suffering? You would be kind to them. You would listen to them. You would not judge them. You would encourage them. You would do what you could to help." She suggests treating yourself with this same quality of care, especially when you are going through difficulty. This is not narcissism or self-absorption. This is the foundation of being able to extend genuine care to others. Compassion practice can also help with the emotional and psychological aspects of illness that are often as challenging as the physical symptoms. Illness frequently brings fear, frustration, grief, anger, and other difficult emotions. Compassion means making space for all of these emotions without judging yourself for having them. You can acknowledge to yourself, "This is really hard. It makes sense that I feel frightened. Anyone would be frustrated in this situation." This kind of validation, which you might readily offer a friend, can be transformative when offered to yourself. One of the most important aspects of self-compassion in healing is forgiving yourself for being human, for having limitations, for not being perfect. Many people carry deep guilt about being ill, as if they have failed in some way. They think they should have been stronger, should have taken better care of themselves, should have seen it coming. But hindsight is always clearer than foresight, and being human means being vulnerable to illness and injury. Forgiving yourself for your humanity, for not being invincible, is essential for healing. As you develop compassion for yourself through regular practice, something remarkable happens. You become more resilient, not through becoming harder or tougher, but through becoming softer and more flexible. You develop trust in your ability to meet whatever arises with kindness. You stop fearing your own vulnerability because you know you will not abandon yourself when things are difficult. This internal sense of being befriended by yourself, of having your own back, is one of the greatest gifts you can give yourself. It is medicine for the soul that ripples out to affect every aspect of your life. In the next section, we will explore the fifth principle of Buddhist natural healing, letting go of what makes us sick. You will discover that healing often requires releasing patterns, beliefs, relationships, and ways of being that have been contributing to illness. You will learn that letting go is not loss, but liberation, not emptiness, but space for new possibilities. For now, place your hand over your heart and offer yourself one simple phrase. May I be kind to myself in this moment. Feel what it is like to direct care toward yourself, to include yourself in your circle of compassion. This simple act is already healing. The fifth principle of Buddhist natural healing addresses something that is often overlooked in conventional approaches to health, that healing frequently requires letting go of whatever has been making us sick. Not just stopping harmful behaviors or removing physical toxins, but releasing the mental, emotional, and spiritual patterns that create and perpetuate illness. Buddhist psychology recognizes that we become attached to patterns that harm us, that we cling to familiar suffering because at least it is known that we resist change even when change would serve our well-being. The practice of letting go, of release, is therefore essential for healing at the deepest level. The Buddha taught that attachment, or clinging, is the root of suffering. We attach to pleasant experiences and want them to continue forever. We attach to our ideas about how things should be and suffer when reality does not conform. We attach to our self-image and defend it against any threat. We even attach to our suffering, our pain, our stories of victimhood because they have become part of our identity. All of this clinging creates tension, resistance, and struggle that manifests in the body as stress, illness, and disease. When we can learn to hold life more lightly, to let go of our desperate grasping, healing becomes possible. There is a teaching story from the Zen tradition about a woman who came to a master complaining of terrible anxiety and insomnia. The master listened to her description of her symptoms and then asked her to hold out her hands. When she did, he placed a small stone in each palm and asked her to hold them tightly. She closed her fists around the stones. "Now," he said, "carry these stones with you everywhere for the next week, never opening your hands, never letting go of them. Come back and tell me how you feel." The woman protested that this was ridiculous, that of course holding stones constantly would be uncomfortable and exhausting. The master smiled. "Yet this is exactly what you are doing with your worries, your fears, your need to control. You are gripping them tightly, carrying them everywhere, never letting go. How could you not be exhausted?" This story illuminates a profound truth. Much of the burden we carry that makes us sick is burden we are choosing to carry through our mental and emotional grasping. We hold on to resentments from the past. We clutch at relationships that have ended. We grip our expectations about how our life should have turned out. We cling to our youth, our health, our abilities as they were, refusing to accept natural change. All of this holding, this refusing to let go, creates enormous stress that compromises immune function, increases inflammation, disrupts sleep, raises blood pressure, and contributes to virtually every stress-related illness. Buddhist teachings identify different types of clinging that are particularly relevant to healing. First is clinging to sensory pleasures, the constant grasping after pleasant experiences and avoidance of unpleasant ones. This creates suffering because pleasant experiences are impermanent and because no amount of external pleasure can fill the internal sense of incompleteness. In terms of health, this can manifest as addiction, as compulsive behaviors to numb discomfort, as the inability to rest in simple being without constant stimulation. Second is clinging to views and opinions, the attachment to being right, to seeing the world only through your particular perspective. This rigidity of mind creates stress in relationships and prevents the openness and flexibility that support healing. When you are attached to your views about health, about your illness, about what should or should not be happening, you create resistance to reality that adds suffering to pain. Third is clinging to rites and rituals, believing that if you just perform the right practices or follow the right protocols perfectly, you can control outcomes. While healthy practices certainly support healing, attachment to them creates anxiety and a sense of failure when results do not come as expected. There is a middle way between discipline and flexibility that supports healing without creating additional stress. Fourth, and perhaps most relevant to illness, is clinging to a sense of self as permanent and unchanging. We develop a self-image, a story of who we are, and we defend this story at all costs. When illness comes, it challenges our self-image. We may have seen ourselves as strong, capable, independent, and now we feel weak, limited, dependent. The suffering comes not just from the illness, but from our resistance to this change in our sense of self. If we can let go of our rigid self-image and allow ourselves to be what we are in this moment, much suffering dissolves. There is a powerful practice in Buddhist meditation traditions for working with clinging. It is simply to notice when you are holding on, when you are gripping, when you are resisting what is. You do not have to immediately let go. You simply notice the holding with curious, non-judgmental awareness. I am clinging to my expectation of how today should go. I notice I am gripping against this feeling of sadness. I see myself holding on to this resentment toward that person. The simple act of noticing creates a tiny gap, a moment of choice. In that gap, letting go can happen naturally, not as something you force, but as something that occurs when you see clearly the suffering that holding on creates. Another teaching story comes from the Burmese meditation tradition. A student complained to his teacher that he could not let go of his anger towards someone who had harmed him years ago. The teacher listened and then held up his fist, clenched tightly. "See this fist," he said. "I am holding on to something very tightly." It is creating tension not just in my hand, but in my whole arm, my shoulder, my neck. If I hold this fist tight long enough, the tension will spread through my whole body. Then he slowly opened his hand, revealing nothing in his palm. Look, I was not actually holding anything at all. I was creating tension by gripping empty air. Your anger is like this. You think you are holding on to something real, something solid, but you are creating suffering by gripping empty stories, memories, interpretations. The person who harmed you is not even here. Only your grip is here, creating your pain. This teaching points to something you can verify in your own experience. So much of what you hold on to is not actually present except as thought, as memory, as imagined futures. You carry these thoughts like heavy burdens, and they create real stress in your body, even though they have no substance outside your mind. When you can see this clearly, letting go becomes easier. You realize you are not actually losing anything real. You are just releasing the tension of your mental grip. Letting go is particularly important when dealing with chronic illness or pain. There is a natural tendency to fight against symptoms, to resist them, to want them gone immediately. But this fighting creates additional tension and stress that often makes symptoms worse. There is a paradoxical principle in healing. What you resist persists. What you accept transforms. When you can let go of your resistance to your symptoms, when you can accept them as your current reality, while still taking appropriate action to address them, they often become less overwhelming. You discover that you can be at peace even while experiencing discomfort. This does not mean becoming passive or giving up on healing. It means letting go of the desperate, grasping quality of "I must get rid of this right now or I cannot be okay." It means releasing the second arrow of mental and emotional suffering while feeling the first arrow of physical sensation. It means opening your grip on how things should be and allowing reality to be as it is. From this place of acceptance, effective action can arise more easily because you are not wasting energy fighting what is. In Tibetan Buddhism, there are teachings about the 8 worldly concerns that people typically cling to: pleasure and pain, gain and loss, praise and blame, fame and disgrace. We spend our lives trying to get the pleasant experiences and avoid the unpleasant ones. We grasp at gain and push away loss. We seek praise and avoid blame. We want to be well regarded and fear being looked down upon. All of this grasping and aversion creates endless stress and suffering. The teaching is not that these things do not matter at all, but that attaching your sense of well-being to them guarantees suffering because all of them are impermanent and beyond your complete control. Illness often confronts us directly with several of these worldly concerns. We experience pain instead of pleasure. We lose abilities or independence. We might face blame, either from others or ourselves, for being ill. We might lose social status or professional standing. Buddhist practice invites us to find a ground of well-being that does not depend on these constantly shifting circumstances. This does not happen overnight, but through repeated practice of letting go, of returning to presence, of resting in awareness rather than in circumstances, you gradually develop this unshakable ground. One of the most challenging things to let go of when facing illness can be the identity of being a sick person. If you live with chronic illness for long enough, being ill can become part of how you see yourself, part of your story, part of how you relate to others. There can even be secondary gains from being ill: attention, sympathy, permission to say no to demands, validation of your suffering. Buddhist psychology recognizes these attachments with compassion, not judgment, and invites you to examine them honestly. Are there ways you are unconsciously clinging to illness because it serves some need? Can you find healthier ways to meet those needs? This kind of inquiry requires great honesty and self-compassion. Letting go also applies to relationships and situations that may be contributing to illness. Perhaps there is a toxic relationship that creates constant stress. Perhaps there is a job that is literally making you sick. Perhaps there are commitments you have taken on that overwhelm your capacity. Buddhist teachings about wise actions suggest that sometimes healing requires making difficult changes, setting boundaries, saying no to what drains you. This is not selfish. This is intelligent self-care that honors the reality of your finite energy and capacity. There is a meditation practice from the Theravada tradition specifically for cultivating letting go. You sit quietly and simply observe experiences arising and passing away. Thoughts, sensations, emotions, sounds. Each time something arises, you notice it, and each time it passes away, you consciously let it go, releasing any grip on it. You might use a simple phrase, "It's already gone," or "I let this go." This practice trains the mind in the impermanence of all phenomena and in the art of release. Over time, this capacity to let go that you develop on the meditation cushion becomes available in daily life. Another powerful practice is what might be called emptying the cup. In Zen, there is a famous story of a professor who visited a master to learn about Zen. As they sat down, the master began pouring tea. He kept pouring even after the cup was full, and tea spilled everywhere. The professor exclaimed, "Stop! The cup is full, no more will go in." The master replied, "Like this cup, you are full of your own opinions and ideas. How can I show you Zen unless you first empty your cup?" This teaching applies to healing. Sometimes you need to empty yourself of preconceptions, of rigid beliefs about your condition, of attachment to particular outcomes, to make space for healing to enter. Letting go in the context of healing might mean releasing expectations about how quickly you should heal, about what healing should look like, about who you should be while you're going through this process. It might mean letting go of comparing yourself to others or to your former self. It might mean releasing guilt about being ill or shame about your limitations. Each of these releases creates a little more space, a little more ease, a little more capacity for healing to occur naturally. The practice of forgiveness is a specific form of letting go that has powerful healing effects. Research has shown that holding grudges and resentments creates measurable stress in the body, raising blood pressure, increasing inflammation, suppressing immune function. Conversely, practicing forgiveness, truly letting go of resentment, has beneficial effects on both mental and physical health. Buddhist metta practice includes a specific phase of forgiveness, forgiving those who have harmed you, asking forgiveness from those you have harmed, and forgiving yourself for your own mistakes and failures. Forgiveness does not mean condoning harmful actions or pretending that hurt did not happen. It means releasing the burden of carrying resentment, recognizing that this burden harms you more than anyone else. It means acknowledging that holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. It means choosing freedom over the false sense of control that comes from holding a grudge. As you explore the practice of letting go in your own healing journey, be patient with yourself. Letting go is a skill that develops gradually through practice. You will likely notice that you let go of something only to grab it again a moment later. This is normal. The practice is not about achieving perfect detachment, but about repeatedly noticing your grip and choosing to soften it. Each time you practice release, even momentarily, you are training your mind and body in a new way of being. Over time, this training accumulates, and letting go becomes more natural, more automatic. In the next section, we will explore how these 5 principles of Buddhist natural healing come together into a coherent approach to well-being. We will hear stories of transformation, of people who have applied these teachings and experienced profound healing. We will delve deeper into how to integrate these practices into daily life, even when facing serious illness. For now, take a moment to notice what you might be holding on to in this moment. Is there any tension in your body that you could soften? Is there any thought you could let float by without grabbing it? Can you feel what it is like to simply be without holding on to anything at all? This is the practice of letting go, and in this release, healing happens naturally. As we journey deeper into the Buddhist teachings on natural healing, it becomes clear that these are not merely abstract philosophical principles, but practical wisdom that people have used for thousands of years to support healing and well-being. The 5 principles we have explored, understanding the mind-body connection, harnessing the healing power of breath, cultivating presence, practicing self-compassion, and letting go of what makes us sick, form a complete approach to healing that addresses body, mind, and spirit simultaneously. In this section, we will explore stories of transformation that illustrate how these teachings work in real lives, and we will begin to see how these principles weave together into a unified practice. There is a story from contemporary times about a woman named Sarah who was diagnosed with an autoimmune condition that caused chronic pain and fatigue. Her doctors prescribed medications that helped somewhat, but came with difficult side effects. Sarah felt frustrated, frightened, and increasingly disconnected from her body, which she had come to see as unreliable and broken. A friend suggested she try a mindfulness-based program at a local meditation center. Sarah was skeptical. How could meditation help a physical illness? But she was desperate enough to try anything. In the program, Sarah learned the 5 principles we have been exploring. She learned about the mind-body connection and began to notice how her stress, worry, and self-judgment actually made her symptoms worse. She learned breathing practices and discovered that slow, deep breathing could significantly reduce her pain levels during flares. She learned presence practice and found that when she could be with her pain without the layers of fear and resistance, it became more bearable. She learned self-compassion and began treating herself with kindness instead of frustration when her body limited what she could do. She learned about letting go and started releasing her attachment to being the person she used to be, accepting her current reality while still working toward healing. After several months of daily practice, Sarah noticed remarkable changes. Her pain levels decreased. Her energy improved. She needed less medication. Her doctors were surprised by the improvements in her inflammatory markers. But perhaps more importantly, Sarah's relationship with her condition had fundamentally changed. She no longer saw herself as broken or her body as an enemy. She had learned to work with her body, to listen to its signals, to honor its needs. She had discovered that even with a chronic condition, she could experience peace, joy, and a deep sense of well-being. Her illness had not disappeared, but it was no longer defining or limiting her life in the same way. Another story comes from the Tibetan tradition, a more traditional healing narrative. A monk developed a serious infection that was not responding to antibiotics. His condition worsened until he was near death. His teacher came to his bedside and asked him about his meditation practice. The monk admitted that for months, perhaps years, his practice had become mechanical, going through the motions without genuine presence or devotion. He had been filled with doubt and resistance, pushing himself to meditate, but doing so with a harsh, demanding attitude. His teacher said, "Your outer infection reflects an inner infection of self-rejection and resistance to your own experience. The healing must begin from within." The teacher gave the monk a new practice, to meditate on compassion both for himself and for the bacteria that were attacking his body, recognizing that even these microorganisms were just trying to survive. This seemed absurd to the monk, but he began the practice. As he cultivated genuine compassion, first for himself and then even for the agents of his illness, something shifted profoundly. His fever broke. His infection began to resolve. His doctors were baffled by the sudden turn, but his teacher understood. When the inner conflict resolved, the body's wisdom could flow freely again. These stories illustrate a principle that runs through all Buddhist healing, that outer healing and inner healing are inseparable. You cannot address only the physical symptoms while ignoring the mental, emotional, and spiritual dimensions and expect complete healing. Conversely, inner work alone may not cure all physical ailments, but it always improves quality of life and often has surprising effects on physical health as well. There is a man named Michael who suffered a serious injury in an accident that left him with chronic pain that doctors said would never fully resolve. For years, Michael became bitter and angry. He felt cheated by life. He isolated himself from friends and family. He became depressed. His pain seemed to worsen as his mental state declined. A psychologist suggested he try mindfulness meditation, but Michael refused at first. "Meditation is not going to fix my broken body," he said. But eventually, his suffering became so great that he was willing to try. Michael began with simple breath awareness, just 10 minutes a day. At first, it seemed pointless, but he kept practicing because he had promised himself he would try for at least a month. Gradually, he began to notice subtle shifts. He realized that his pain was not constant, but actually fluctuated significantly depending on his mental state. When he was angry or anxious, the pain intensified. When he could be present and accepting even briefly, the pain lessened. This was a revelation. He had some influence over his experience after all. Encouraged, Michael deepened his practice. He learned to work directly with pain through presence, investigating the sensations with curiosity rather than resistance. He practiced self-compassion, acknowledging how difficult his situation was, while also treating himself with kindness. He worked on letting go of his story of being a victim, of his attachment to the life he had lost. None of this was easy. There were many days of frustration and setback, but over time, Michael's experience of his condition fundamentally transformed. The pain signals were still present in his body, but he had changed his relationship with them. He was no longer at war with himself. He had found a way to live well even with chronic pain. What made the difference for Michael, as for Sarah and the monk in the stories above, was not any single technique, but the holistic approach that addressed all dimensions of suffering. The breath practices calmed his nervous system. The presence practices changed how he processed pain signals. The compassion practices shifted his relationship with himself. The letting go practices freed him from the prison of his own resistance. Together, these practices created conditions in which healing, understood broadly, could occur. There is a teaching in Buddhist psychology about the difference between pain and suffering. Pain is the inevitable physical sensation that comes with injury, illness, or difficult experience. Suffering is the mental and emotional anguish we add to pain through resistance, fear, story, and identification. The Buddha taught that while pain is part of life, suffering is optional. This does not mean suffering is easy to release or that you can simply think your way out of it. It means that through practice, through developing new ways of relating to your experience, you can significantly reduce suffering even when pain remains. The 5 principles work synergistically. Understanding the mind-body connection motivates you to address mental and emotional patterns that contribute to illness. Breath practices give you a concrete tool for regulating your nervous system and creating optimal conditions for healing. Presence practices prevent the proliferation of suffering around pain or illness. Compassion practices ensure that your healing efforts come from kindness rather than harsh driving. Letting go practices release the obstacles that prevent your natural healing capacity from functioning. Together, they form a complete path. In modern mindfulness-based medical programs, these principles are being applied successfully to a wide range of conditions. Research has documented benefits for people with chronic pain, cancer, heart disease, diabetes, autoimmune conditions, digestive disorders, skin conditions, respiratory problems, and numerous other physical ailments. The programs do not claim to cure these conditions, but they consistently improve quality of life, reduce symptoms, decrease need for medication, and in some cases, lead to improvements that surprise even skeptical physicians. What is happening in these programs is that people are learning to stop fighting themselves. They are learning to work with their bodies rather than against them. They are discovering inner resources they did not know they possessed. They are recognizing that even in the midst of serious illness, moments of peace, joy, connection, and meaning are possible. They are finding that well-being is not the same as the absence of illness, that you can be well even while experiencing disease. There is a woman named Grace who was diagnosed with cancer and went through difficult treatment. During her chemotherapy, she applied the Buddhist principles she had learned. She used breath practices to manage nausea and anxiety. She practiced presence during her treatments, which helped her remain calm and centered even during procedures. She treated herself with enormous compassion, recognizing that she was going through something incredibly difficult and deserved kindness. She practiced letting go of her need to control an uncertain outcome, finding a way to be at peace with not knowing what would happen. Grace reported that her Buddhist practice did not make cancer easy, but it made it bearable. She found moments of genuine peace even during treatment. She maintained her sense of humor and her connection to what mattered most in her life. Her medical team remarked on how well she was coping compared to other patients. After treatment, Grace continued her practice, finding that it helped her navigate the anxiety of waiting for test results and adjusting to life after cancer. Whether the meditation directly affected her physical healing, Grace could not say for certain, but she had no doubt that it profoundly affected her experience of the illness and her quality of life throughout. These stories are not meant to suggest that Buddhist practice is a magic cure, or that everyone who practices will have miraculous physical healing. Some people practice diligently and still die from their illnesses. Some people face conditions that no amount of meditation can cure. But what is consistent across all the stories is that these practices improve the journey, regardless of the destination. They reduce suffering even when they cannot eliminate pain. They preserve quality of life and dignity even in the face of serious illness. They offer a way to remain connected to your humanity, your peace, your sense of meaning, even when circumstances are very difficult. The Buddhist approach to healing also emphasizes the importance of wise action alongside inner practice. Understanding mind-body connection does not mean ignoring physical interventions when they are needed. It means using both inner and outer resources wisely. If you need medication, take it. If you need surgery, have it. If you need to change your diet or exercise routine, do so. Buddhist healing is not about rejecting conventional medicine, but about complementing it with practices that address dimensions that conventional medicine often overlooks. There is a teaching about the middle way that applies perfectly to healing. The Buddha rejected extreme asceticism that denied the body's needs, but he also rejected indulgence that led to suffering. The middle way involves taking appropriate care of the body while not identifying completely with it, addressing illness intelligently while not becoming consumed by it, using medicine and treatment when helpful while not expecting them to solve problems that are fundamentally mental, emotional, or spiritual. A man named David developed high blood pressure and was told by his doctor that he needed to make significant lifestyle changes and might need medication. David learned about stress reduction through Buddhist practice. He began meditating daily. He practiced conscious breathing throughout the day. He became more present and less reactive in stressful situations. He cultivated self-compassion instead of driving himself so hard. He let go of some commitments that were overwhelming him. Within 3 months, his blood pressure had dropped significantly. His doctor was pleased and said medication might not be necessary if he continued these changes. David's story illustrates how Buddhist practices can sometimes address the root causes of illness. His high blood pressure was largely stress-related, driven by his mental patterns and lifestyle. By addressing these root causes through meditation and related practices, he was able to resolve the physical symptom. This will not work for all conditions, but for the many illnesses that have significant stress components, this approach can be remarkably effective. Another dimension of Buddhist healing that these stories illustrate is the role of community and connection. In traditional Buddhist societies, healing was never a purely individual matter. The community supported the sick person through practical help, through prayer and good wishes, through their presence and care. Modern research has confirmed that social support is one of the strongest predictors of health and recovery from illness. People with strong social connections heal faster, have better immune function, live longer, and report better quality of life than isolated individuals. Buddhist teachings on interconnection remind us that we are not separate, isolated entities. We are part of a vast web of relationship. When you are ill, allowing others to support you, receiving their care and concern, is actually a gift you give them as well as yourself. It allows people to express their love and caring. It strengthens bonds of relationship. It reminds everyone involved of our fundamental interconnectedness and mutual dependence. As we have explored these stories of transformation, certain themes emerge repeatedly. People who experience the deepest healing, whether physical cure or transformation of their relationship with illness, share certain qualities. They practice regularly rather than sporadically. They bring genuine curiosity and openness to their experience rather than just trying to make unpleasant things go away. They are patient with the process, understanding that deep healing takes time. They are willing to face difficult truths about themselves and their lives. They balance acceptance of what is with commitment to positive change. They connect with others rather than isolating themselves. They find meaning and purpose even in the midst of difficulty. In the next section, we will explore how to establish a daily practice that integrates these Buddhist healing principles into your life. You will learn practical guidance for creating a sustainable practice that fits your circumstances and supports your healing journey. For now, reflect on the stories you have heard. What resonates with your own experience? What possibilities do you see for your own healing? Can you imagine a different relationship with whatever health challenges you face? The transformation that happened for the people in these stories is available to you as well. The path is clear, the practices are accessible. What is required is simply your willingness to begin and to continue, day by day, moment by moment, breath by breath. Understanding Buddhist principles of natural healing is valuable, but understanding alone does not bring healing. What transforms lives is daily practice, the consistent application of these principles in ordinary moments, the gradual training of mind and body in new ways of being. In this section, we will explore how to establish and maintain a daily practice that integrates Buddhist healing wisdom into your life. This practice need not be elaborate or time-consuming. What matters most is regularity, sincerity, and the willingness to show up for yourself day after day. The foundation of any Buddhist healing practice is meditation. This does not necessarily mean sitting cross-legged for hours like a monk. It means setting aside time each day to cultivate the qualities that support healing: presence, compassion, equanimity, and wisdom. Even 10 or 15 minutes daily, practiced consistently, can have profound effects over time. The key is making meditation a non-negotiable part of your routine, like brushing your teeth or eating meals. It is not something you do only when you feel like it or when you have extra time. It is a foundational commitment to your well-being. Begin by choosing a time for meditation that you can realistically maintain. For many people, early morning works well because the mind is relatively quiet and you are less likely to be interrupted. For others, evening might be better, or perhaps a midday break. The specific time matters less than consistency. Once you have chosen a time, protect it. Turn off phones. Let family members know you need this time undisturbed. Create a simple space where you practice, even if it is just a corner of a room with a cushion or chair. This space will gradually become associated with practice, making it easier to settle into meditation. Your daily practice might begin with a few minutes of conscious breathing. Sit comfortably with your back reasonably upright. Close your eyes or lower your gaze. Bring your attention to the natural flow of breath. Do not try to breathe in any particular way at first. Just notice breathing as it is. Feel the sensations of air moving in and out of your nostrils. Feel your chest or belly rising and falling. When your mind wanders, which it will, gently bring attention back to breath. This simple practice is training your attention, calming your nervous system, and anchoring you in present moment awareness. After a few minutes of breath awareness, you might move into a body scan practice. This involves systematically bringing attention to each part of your body, from feet to head, simply noticing whatever sensations are present without trying to change anything. This practice cultivates intimate awareness of your body, helps you notice subtle signals before they become serious problems, releases unconscious tension, and develops the capacity to be present with uncomfortable sensations. A full body scan might take 20 minutes, or you can do a shorter version in 5 or 10 minutes. Following the body scan, you might practice loving-kindness meditation, directing compassionate wishes toward yourself and others. Begin with yourself. May I be safe. May I be healthy. May I be happy. May I live with ease. Really feel the meaning of these words. Let them resonate in your heart. Imagine yourself surrounded by warm light, held in loving care. Then extend these wishes to others. Someone who has been kind to you, a neutral person, someone difficult, and finally all beings everywhere. This practice trains your heart in unconditional goodwill and has been shown to increase positive emotions, decrease negative emotions, improve relationships, and even affect physical health markers. This sequence, breath awareness, body scan, loving kindness meditation, forms a complete daily practice that addresses all dimensions of healing. It takes perhaps 20 to 30 minutes. If this feels like too much at first, start with just 10 minutes of breath awareness. The important thing is to establish the habit of daily practice. You can gradually extend the time as meditation becomes a valued part of your routine. Beyond formal meditation, the Buddhist healing approach emphasizes bringing mindful awareness to all activities throughout the day. This is sometimes called informal practice. The idea is to use ordinary activities as opportunities to cultivate presence, to wake up to the miracle of being alive, to train attention and awareness. When you eat, really taste your food. When you walk, feel each step. When you listen to someone, truly listen without planning what you will say next. When you wash dishes, be fully present with the warm water and soap bubbles. These moments of presence scattered throughout the day maintain and deepen what you develop in formal meditation. Working specifically with illness or pain, you can integrate your meditation practice with conscious healing intention. If you are dealing with a particular condition, you might dedicate part of your meditation time to directing healing attention to the affected area. Place your hand gently on or near the area. Breathe into it, imagining your breath bringing healing energy and carrying away whatever needs to be released. Speak to this part of your body with compassion, acknowledging its difficulty and expressing confidence in healing. Visualize the area glowing with healing light, functioning optimally in perfect harmony with the rest of your body. This kind of healing visualization is not wishful thinking or denial of reality. It is using the power of imagination and intention to activate your body's healing systems. Remember that what you focus on with positive emotion triggers beneficial beneficial neurochemical cascades. Visualization of healing, when combined with genuine positive emotion and belief, has been shown in research to improve immune function, reduce pain, speed healing, and improve outcomes in many conditions. You are not trying to force healing through mental effort. You are creating optimal internal conditions that allow your body's natural healing capacity to work most effectively. Breath practices should be integrated throughout your day, not just during formal meditation. Anytime you notice stress, anxiety, or physical discomfort, return to conscious breathing. Take 3 to 5 slow, deep breaths, making the exhale longer than the inhale. This simple act, which takes less than a minute, can shift your entire nervous system state. You can do it before difficult conversations, during medical procedures, when symptoms flare, in traffic, before sleep, anytime you need to return to center. You might establish specific times for breath practice throughout the day. Perhaps you take 3 conscious breaths every hour, using a gentle alarm as a reminder. Perhaps you practice 5 minutes of breathing exercises before lunch and dinner. Perhaps you practice specific pranayama or breathing techniques that your teacher has given you. The more you practice conscious breathing, the more it becomes your automatic response to stress, rather than tension and reactivity. Self-compassion should also be practiced throughout the day, not just during meditation. Notice when you are being harsh or critical with yourself and consciously shift to a kinder inner voice. When you make a mistake, practice saying, "It's okay. Everyone makes mistakes. I'm learning." When you are struggling with symptoms, practice acknowledging, "This is really difficult right now. I'm doing the best I can." When you feel frustrated with your limitations, practice remembering, "I deserve compassion, especially when things are hard." These small moments of self-kindness accumulate to fundamentally change your relationship with yourself. Letting go is also practiced throughout the day. Notice when you are gripping, holding, resisting. You might be clenching your jaw, raising your shoulders, tightening your stomach. These physical holdings often reflect mental and emotional holdings. When you notice tension, consciously soften. Drop your shoulders, unclench your jaw, soften your belly. Take a breath and let it out with a sigh, releasing whatever you are holding. Do this dozens of times throughout the day, and you will gradually train your body-mind in the art of release. Establishing a daily practice also means making lifestyle choices that support healing. From a Buddhist perspective, this includes ethical conduct, what is called sila in Pali. Ethical conduct is not just about following rules, it is about living in a way that creates the conditions for peace and well-being. The 5 basic precepts that Buddhist laypeople practice are refraining from killing, refraining from taking what is not given, refraining from sexual misconduct, refraining from false speech, and refraining from intoxication that clouds the mind. These can be understood as commitments to non-harming, generosity, respect, truthfulness, and clarity. How do these relate to healing? When you live ethically, you reduce the guilt, shame, and internal conflict that create stress and illness. When you harm others, you harm yourself through the stress of guilt and the fear of consequences. When you live with integrity, aligned with your values, you create internal peace that supports healing. When you are honest, you reduce the exhausting work of maintaining facades. When you keep your mind clear rather than clouding it with substances, you can perceive more accurately what you need and respond more wisely. Diet is another important aspect of daily practice for healing. Buddhist teachings do not prescribe one specific diet, recognizing that different bodies have different needs, but they do emphasize mindful eating, moderation, and eating in ways that support clarity and well-being rather than dullness and craving. Many Buddhist practitioners find that eating less meat, eating more plants, eating fresh and whole foods rather than processed foods, and not eating to excess all support their health and their meditation practice. The practice of mindful eating transforms meals into meditation. Before eating, take a moment to appreciate your food, to recognize all the beings and processes that brought this food to you. Eat slowly, chewing thoroughly, really tasting each bite. Notice the colors, textures, aromas. Pay attention to signals of satiation and stop before you are overfull. Notice how different foods affect your body and mind. This kind of awareness naturally guides you toward foods and amounts that serve your well-being. Physical movement is also part of holistic practice. The Buddha emphasized the middle way between extreme asceticism and indulgence. The body needs appropriate exercise to maintain health, but driving yourself to exhaustion is not helpful. Gentle practices like walking meditation, yoga, tai chi, or qigong are ideal because they integrate physical movement with breath awareness and mental presence. Even 15 minutes of gentle movement daily can significantly improve physical health, mental clarity, and emotional balance. Walking meditation is a wonderful practice that can be done almost anywhere. Simply walk slowly, giving full attention to the process of walking. Feel your feet lifting, moving through air, touching the ground. Feel the shift of weight from one leg to the other. Feel the movement of your whole body. Walk slowly enough that you can be completely present with each step. If your mind wanders, bring it back to the physical sensations of walking. This practice develops concentration, grounds you in your body, and can be very soothing for an agitated mind. Rest and sleep are also crucial components of a healing practice. Many people push themselves beyond their capacity, burning the candle at both ends, viewing rest as laziness. Buddhist teachings recognize rest as essential for health and for spiritual practice. The Buddha encouraged his monks to get adequate sleep, to rest when tired, to respect the body's needs. When you are healing from illness, you need even more rest than usual. Honor this need without guilt. See rest as active healing time during which your body is doing crucial repair work. Establishing good sleep hygiene supports healing. Go to bed and wake at consistent times. Create a restful sleeping environment that is dark, quiet, and comfortable. Avoid screens for an hour before bed, as the blue light interferes with melatonin production. Perhaps practice the 5 sacred lines of gratitude: release, stillness, trust, and peace before sleep, as we explored in earlier sections. Use the transition to sleep as a spiritual practice, a conscious letting go into rest. Connection and community are also important aspects of practice. While meditation is often solitary, healing happens in relationship. Consider finding a meditation group or sangha, which is the Buddhist term for spiritual community. Practicing with others provides support, accountability, inspiration, and the powerful energy of group practice. Many people find that they can meditate more deeply in a group setting. Even if the group is online rather than in person, the sense of practicing together with others on the path is valuable. If you are working with illness, you might find or create a support group specifically for people applying contemplative practices to health challenges. Sharing your experience with others who understand, learning from their experience, offering and receiving support, all of this enhances healing. We heal in relationship, not just in isolation. Buddhist teachings on interdependence remind us that our well-being is intimately connected to the well-being of those around us. A daily practice also includes study and reflection, reading teachings, listening to Dharma talks, contemplating how these teachings apply to your life. All of this deepens your understanding and supports your practice. You might dedicate 15 minutes a day to reading Buddhist texts or contemporary books about mindfulness and healing. You might listen to talks by teachers while commuting or exercising. This regular input of wisdom keeps you inspired and gives you new insights to work with. Keeping a journal can be a valuable part of practice. You might write about your meditation experiences, your insights about your illness and healing, your observations about what practices help most, your struggles and questions. This kind of reflective writing helps you process experience, track your progress, notice patterns, and maintain clear intention. You are creating a dialogue with yourself, bringing consciousness to your healing journey. It is important to be realistic about your practice, especially when you are ill. Some days you will feel strong enough for a full practice. Other days you might only manage a few breaths. Some days you will be present and focused. Other days your mind will be scattered. Some days you will feel compassion flowing easily. Other days you will feel frustrated and critical. All of this is normal and okay. The practice is not about being perfect. It is about showing up again and again with whatever capacity you have in this moment. The Buddhist teaching of beginning again is crucial here. Every moment is a new beginning. Every breath is a fresh start. If you miss a day of practice, you simply begin again the next day without guilt or harsh judgment. If your mind wanders 1,000 times during meditation, you gently bring it back 1,000 times without criticism. If you fall back into old patterns of stress and reactivity, you simply notice this and begin again practicing presence and compassion. This willingness to begin again, endlessly with kindness, is the heart of the practice. Over time, with consistent daily practice, you will notice changes. Some will be subtle. You might realize you are reacting less strongly to stressors, or that you are more aware of your body's signals, or that you have more moments of genuine peace during the day. Some changes might be more dramatic, significant improvement in symptoms, deeper capacity to be with difficulty, fundamental shift in how you see yourself and your life. Trust the process. The benefits of practice accumulate gradually, like drops of water eventually filling a bucket. In the next section, we will explore one of the most profound Buddhist teachings for healing, understanding impermanence and how acceptance of change itself is medicine. For now, commit to beginning or deepening your daily practice. Choose 1 or 2 specific practices you will do every day. Write down your intention. Perhaps share it with a friend for accountability, and then begin. This very day, this very moment. Your healing journey starts with this single breath, this moment of presence, this choice to care for yourself with wisdom and compassion. One of the most profound and transformative teachings in all of Buddhism is the recognition of impermanence, called anicca in Pali. Everything changes. Nothing remains the same from one moment to the next. All phenomena are in constant flux, arising and passing away in an endless dance of transformation. This might sound like a philosophical abstraction, but it is actually one of the most practical and healing insights you can develop. When you truly understand impermanence, not just intellectually but in your bones, your whole relationship with illness, pain, and suffering transforms. You discover that acceptance of change is itself a form of medicine, perhaps the most powerful medicine there is. Most suffering, according to Buddhist psychology, comes from our resistance to impermanence. We want pleasant experiences to last forever. We want unpleasant experiences to end immediately and never return. We want the people we love to stay with us always. We want our bodies to remain young, strong, and healthy indefinitely. We build our sense of security on things that are by nature impermanent: our health, our relationships, our achievements, our possessions. And then we suffer when these things inevitably change, as they must. Illness confronts us directly with impermanence in a way that is impossible to ignore. The body we have taken for granted suddenly changes. Abilities we assumed would always be there are compromised. The future we imagined is no longer certain. This confrontation with impermanence can be devastating, shattering our sense of security and control. But it can also be liberating if we are willing to look deeply at what it reveals. Illness is teaching us what is always true, but usually easier to ignore, that everything is constantly changing, that we cannot hold on to anything permanently, that the only moment we actually have is this one. There is a teaching story from the time of the Buddha about a woman named Kisa Gautami whose infant son died. Distraught with grief, she carried the child's body from house to house, begging for medicine to bring him back to life. People thought she had gone mad. Finally, someone directed her to the Buddha. She placed the child's body at his feet and pleaded for help. The Buddha looked at her with great compassion and said he could help, but first she must bring him a handful of mustard seeds from a household that had never experienced death. Kisa Gautami felt hope surge within her. She went from house to house asking for mustard seeds. Every house was willing to give her seeds, but when she asked if anyone in that household had ever died, the answer was always yes. She went to hundreds of homes. Everywhere death had visited. Slowly, understanding dawned. Death is universal. Loss is part of life. No one is spared. She was not being singled out by fate. This was the nature of existence itself. She buried her son and returned to the Buddha, who taught her about impermanence and suffering. She became one of his foremost disciples, eventually attaining liberation. This story is not about the Buddha being cruel. It is about teaching through direct experience. Kisa Gautami needed to see for herself that impermanence and loss are universal, that fighting against this reality only creates additional suffering. When she could accept the truth of change, she could grieve her son without the added anguish of feeling that something uniquely unfair had happened to her. She could let go of her desperate clinging to what could not be held, and in that acceptance, she found peace. When you are facing illness, you are like Kisa Gautami. You may be fighting against the reality of what is happening, believing that if you just resist hard enough, deny strongly enough, refuse to accept, somehow you can make it not be true. But illness, like death, is part of the nature of existence. Bodies are subject to illness. This is not personal. This is not punishment. This is the nature of material form. All bodies experience disease at some point. All bodies age. All bodies eventually die. Fighting against this truth creates immense suffering on top of whatever physical pain you are experiencing. But here is the liberating insight. If everything is impermanent, then your current condition is also impermanent. Whatever you are experiencing right now will change. If you are in pain, that pain will not remain exactly as it is. It will shift, fluctuate, and eventually pass. If you have been diagnosed with an illness, that illness will not remain static. It will progress, or it will heal, or it will transform into something else, but it will not stay the same. Even chronic conditions have better days and worse days, periods of remission and periods of flare. Nothing is frozen, everything is moving. This recognition can be extraordinarily hopeful. When you're in the midst of suffering, it can feel like it will last forever, like you will be trapped in this state permanently. But the truth of impermanence tells you that this is impossible. This moment of suffering will pass. It is already passing. Even as you experience it, it is changing, transforming, moving towards something else. You do not have to make it pass. You do not have to force change. Change is the nature of reality. Your only choice is whether you will resist this change or flow with it. There is a meditation practice specifically for developing direct insight into impermanence. It involves bringing very close attention to any experience and noticing how it changes moment by moment. You might focus on breath. Notice that no two breaths are identical. Each inhalation is slightly different in depth, duration, quality. Each exhalation is unique. The pause between breaths varies. Everything about breathing is constantly shifting. Or you might focus on sounds, noticing how each sound arises, exists for a moment, and passes away. Or on thoughts, observing how thoughts appear seemingly from nowhere, exist briefly, and dissolve back into nothing. When you practice this kind of meditation regularly, you begin to see impermanence not as an abstract concept, but as the living reality of every moment. Everything is coming and going. Nothing lasts. This direct perception gradually undermines the mind's habitual tendency to experience things as solid and permanent. You see that what you have been clinging to is like trying to grasp water. You see that what you have been resisting will pass on its own. This seeing naturally leads to a quality called equanimity, the ability to remain balanced and at peace in the midst of change. Equanimity does not mean not caring or becoming cold and indifferent. It means caring deeply, while also recognizing that you cannot control everything, that change is inevitable, that holding on and pushing away both create suffering. Equanimity is the quality of the mountain that remains stable while weather systems pass over it. It is the quality of space that is not affected by what moves through it. Developing equanimity in the face of illness means finding that place within you that can remain at peace even while your body is going through difficulty. There is a phrase in Buddhism, "This too shall pass." It applies to everything. When you are experiencing something wonderful, this too shall pass, so savor it without clinging. When you are experiencing something terrible, this too shall pass, so endure it without despair. Nothing lasts forever, not pleasure, not pain, not health, not illness, not life, not even death, according to Buddhist cosmology, because after death comes rebirth. Everything is constantly dying and being born anew in every moment. Working specifically with physical pain, the insight into impermanence can be transformative. When you are present with pain and observe it closely, you notice that what you have been calling pain is not one constant thing, but a constantly changing process. The intensity rises and falls like waves. The quality shifts. The location moves. There are micro moments of relief even in the midst of strong pain. Sometimes the pain is burning, sometimes aching, sometimes sharp, sometimes dull. Sometimes it pulses, sometimes it is constant. But constant is relative. Even when it seems constant, close observation reveals subtle fluctuations. This recognition breaks the sense of pain as a solid, unchanging reality you are trapped in. You begin to see pain as a process, a flow, a series of changing sensations. And if it is constantly changing, you can be curious. What will the next moment bring? Instead of bracing against pain as if it were a permanent wall you cannot get through, you can meet each moment of sensation as it arises, knowing it will pass and be replaced by a new moment. This shift in perception often makes pain more bearable, not because the sensations have lessened, but because you are not adding the suffering of resistance and the fear of permanence. The same applies to illness itself. Even chronic conditions are not static. The immune system is constantly working. Cells are constantly dying and regenerating. Inflammation rises and falls. Healing processes are always active. Nothing in your body is unchanging. When you see your illness not as a fixed condition, but as a dynamic process, possibilities open. You can ask what conditions support this process moving toward greater health. What am I doing that might be interfering with healing? How can I work with the natural changeability of my condition? Acceptance of impermanence also means accepting your own mortality. This might sound morbid, but it is actually liberating and healing. Many people live in denial of death, pushing away any thought of mortality. But this denial creates anxiety that lives in the background of consciousness, driving much of our frantic grasping and our fear of loss. When you can face your mortality directly, when you can accept that this body will one day die, something remarkable happens. You stop wasting time on what does not matter. You prioritize what is truly important. You appreciate this moment because you recognize it as precious and fleeting. There is a Buddhist meditation practice called death contemplation, or Maranasati. It involves reflecting regularly on the truth that death is certain, that the time of death is uncertain, and that nothing but your spiritual development will help you at the time of death. This is not meant to be depressing, but clarifying. When you remember death, you remember what matters. You become less caught up in petty concerns. You treat people with more kindness because you recognize that every encounter might be the last. You take care of your spiritual health with the same urgency you take care of your physical health. Accepting impermanence paradoxically makes life richer, not poorer. When you know that nothing lasts, you pay attention. You savor the good moments because you know they will not last forever. You meet difficult moments with less fear because you know they too will pass. You stop postponing your life, waiting for the perfect conditions that will never come. You recognize that this moment, imperfect as it is your life. Not some future moment when everything is better. This moment, right now. In terms of healing, acceptance of impermanence means letting go of rigid expectations about outcomes. You hope for healing, you work toward healing, but you hold that hope lightly, knowing that outcomes are not entirely within your control. This is very different from passive resignation. You remain actively engaged in supporting your health, while also accepting that bodies are subject to forces beyond complete control. This combination of effort and acceptance, of agency and surrender, creates optimal conditions for healing. There is a teaching about the two truths that is relevant here. Conventional truth is the level of everyday reality where things do appear solid and relatively stable, where actions have consequences, where distinctions matter. Ultimate truth is the level where everything is seen as empty of inherent existence, constantly changing, interdependent. Both levels are valid. In terms of healing, you operate on the conventional level. You see doctors, take medicine, make lifestyle changes. But you also rest in ultimate truth. You recognize impermanence. You see the emptiness of solid self. You understand that health and illness are relative and changing designations, not ultimate realities. This dual perspective prevents both extremes. You do not ignore your condition and fail to take appropriate action because everything is empty anyway, but you also do not become completely identified with your condition and lose sight of your fundamental wholeness because you are caught in the conventional truth of illness. You hold both truths simultaneously, acting wisely on the conventional level while resting in peace on the ultimate level. As you deepen your understanding of impermanence through meditation and reflection, you might notice an interesting paradox. The more you accept that nothing lasts, the more present and alive you become. The more you embrace change, the more you find the unchanging awareness that witnesses all change. The more you let go of trying to freeze reality, the more you find your own eternal nature, the awareness that was present when you were born and will be present when you die, the consciousness that remains constant through all the changes of body and mind. This unchanging awareness is what some Buddhist traditions call Buddha nature, your fundamental nature that is always already perfect, whole and free. Illness happens to the body, suffering happens to the personality, but your deepest nature remains untouched, like the sky remains unaffected by the clouds that pass through it. Connecting to this dimension of your being is the ultimate healing, not because it cures all physical ailments, but because it reveals that your true nature was never ill, never broken, never less than completely whole. In the final section, we will bring together all the threads we have been exploring and discuss what it means to come home to wholeness, to recognize your fundamental wellness even in the midst of illness. We will explore how the Buddhist path is ultimately not about fixing yourself, but about recognizing what has never been broken. For now, contemplate impermanence in your own life. Notice how everything is changing in every moment. Notice that the you who began reading this is not quite the same you who is reading now. Notice that your breath changes, your thoughts change, your sensations change. Can you find what does not change? Can you rest in that unchanging awareness even as everything else flows? This is the healing that transcends all healing. We have journeyed together through the Buddhist teachings on natural healing, exploring principles and practices that have supported well-being for thousands of years. We have learned about the mind-body connection, the healing power of breath, the medicine of presence, compassion as cure, the art of letting go, and the transformative insight into impermanence. Now, as we come to the culmination of this exploration, we arrive at the most profound teaching of all, that healing, in its deepest sense, is not about fixing yourself, but about recognizing that your fundamental nature has never been broken. It is about coming home to the wholeness that you already are and have always been. This might sound paradoxical or even frustrating. If you are suffering from illness or pain, being told that you are already whole might seem like a cruel joke, but stay with this teaching because it holds the key to a peace that does not depend on circumstances, a well-being that can be present even when the body is sick, a healing that reaches deeper than physical cure. This is the gift of the Buddhist understanding of health and wholeness. In Buddhist teaching, there is a distinction between two levels of healing. Relative healing involves the improvement or cure of specific symptoms and conditions. This is important and valuable. Buddhist teachings have always supported relative healing through medicine, lifestyle practices, and mind-body methods, but absolute healing is something different. It is the recognition of your Buddha nature, your fundamental completeness, the awareness that is not subject to illness or health, birth or death. Both levels matter. You address relative illness while resting in absolute wellness. There is a teaching story about a monk who approached a Zen master complaining about his many health problems. The master listened patiently to the long list of ailments and then asked, "But who is aware of these problems? Who is the one experiencing this illness?" The monk paused, bringing his attention to the awareness itself rather than the objects of awareness. In that moment of shift, he glimpsed something profound. The awareness itself was not sick. The consciousness that knew about illness was itself healthy, whole, and unaffected by what it perceived. His body was ill, but his fundamental nature was well. This recognition did not cure his physical ailments, but it transformed his relationship with them. He was no longer completely identified with his condition. He had found a ground of wellness that sickness could not touch. This is not spiritual bypassing, where you use philosophy to avoid dealing with real problems. You still address your physical condition with all appropriate care and intelligence, but you do so from a different place. You are no longer operating from a belief that you are fundamentally broken and need to be fixed. You are operating from recognition of fundamental wholeness while addressing relative difficulties. This shift in your sense of identity has profound effects on the healing process. When you believe that illness means something is wrong with you at the core, that you are deficient or broken, this belief creates stress, shame, and resistance that interfere with healing. But when you can maintain connection to your fundamental okayness while dealing with physical illness, you remain more relaxed, more open, more capable of allowing the body's natural healing processes to function optimally. Your illness becomes something you are experiencing but not what you fundamentally are. Buddhist teachings use the metaphor of the sky and clouds. Clouds pass through the sky constantly, sometimes dense and dark, sometimes light and wispy, sometimes stormy, sometimes non-existent. But the sky itself is never actually touched by the clouds. The sky does not become cloudy. Clouds become present in the sky, but the sky's fundamental nature remains unchanged. You are like the sky. Thoughts, emotions, sensations, health, illness, all of these are like clouds passing through the spacious sky of your awareness. They are real as passing phenomena, but they do not define or limit the sky itself. Coming home to wholeness means learning to identify with the sky rather than with the clouds. This does not mean denying the clouds. When there are storm clouds, you acknowledge them. You take shelter if needed. But you also remember that you are the sky, that your fundamental nature is vast and clear, that no weather can ultimately harm or change what you truly are. This remembrance brings peace that is not dependent on conditions being a certain way. There is a beautiful teaching from Tibetan Buddhism about pure land and impure land. An impure land is a place where beings suffer, where illness, aging, and death are present. A pure land is a place of perfect health, beauty, and happiness. The teaching is that these are not separate places, but different perceptions of the same reality. When your mind is clouded with ignorance, grasping, and aversion, you experience reality as an impure land full of suffering. When your mind is clear, open, and at peace, You experience reality as a pure land, perfect as it is. The external circumstances might be exactly the same, but your experience is radically different depending on the state of your mind. This teaching suggests that the healing you seek is not primarily a change in external conditions, but a transformation of consciousness. When your consciousness transforms, everything transforms. This does not mean that illness magically disappears when you achieve enlightenment. It means that your relationship with illness changes so profoundly that suffering diminishes even if symptoms remain. You see the perfection in imperfection. You find peace in the midst of difficulty. You experience wellness of being even when the body is unwell. The practices we have explored throughout this journey all point toward this transformation of consciousness. Meditation trains you to rest in awareness rather than being lost in the contents of awareness. Breath practices anchor you in the present moment where wellness is always found. Presence practice develops your capacity to be with what is without resistance. Compassion practice opens your heart so that suffering becomes workable rather than overwhelming. Letting go practice releases the grasping that creates much of your suffering. Understanding impermanence frees you from trying to freeze reality into some permanent, perfect state. All of these practices are not trying to create something new. They are removing obstacles to recognizing what has always been true. You are already whole. You are already Buddha nature. You are already the awareness that cannot be harmed. The practices are like cleaning a mirror that has become dusty. The mirror's reflective capacity was always there, just temporarily obscured. The practices remove the obscurations so that your fundamental nature can shine clearly. This does not mean that practice is unnecessary or that you should just accept your current state without effort. The Buddha's own story demonstrates the necessity of practice. He practiced with great intensity for 6 years before his awakening. After his enlightenment, he continued to practice daily for the rest of his life and encouraged his disciples to do the same. Practice is essential, but practice is not about becoming something other than what you are. Practice is about removing what is in the way of recognizing what you already are. There is a Zen teaching that says, enlightenment is an accident, but practice makes you accident-prone. You cannot force awakening to your true nature. You cannot make realization happen through will alone, but through consistent practice, through showing up day after day to meditate, to be present, to work with your mind. You create conditions in which insight naturally arises. You clear away the obstacles, you prepare the ground, and in the right moment, recognition happens. For healing, this means that your practices of meditation, breathwork, presence, compassion, and letting go are not forcing healing, but creating optimal conditions for healing to occur naturally. You are removing obstacles. You are working with your body's innate healing capacity rather than against it. You are addressing the mental and emotional patterns that have been interfering with wellness. And in doing all of this, you are simultaneously discovering your fundamental wellness that exists independent of your body's condition. Coming home to wholeness also means embracing your humanity completely. This includes embracing your vulnerability, your mortality, your limitations. So often, people think that spiritual practice is about transcending humanity, about becoming superhuman. But authentic Buddhist practice is about being fully human, about accepting the complete reality of embodied existence, including its difficulties and imperfections. The Buddha, after his enlightenment, still experienced physical discomfort. He still got old, got sick, and died. Enlightenment did not make him immune to the challenges of having a body. What changed was his relationship with these challenges. You are invited into this same transformation. You do not have to transcend your humanity to find peace. You do not have to become perfect to be whole. You can be completely human, vulnerable and strong, sick and well, broken and whole, all at the same time. These are not contradictions. They are the reality of existence, held in awareness spacious enough to contain paradox. You are the walking wounded and you are perfect Buddha nature. Both are true. Neither negates the other. This teaching brings immense relief to those who have been striving for some ideal state of constant health, perpetual happiness, and flawless functioning. You can let go of that exhausting project. You can be who and how you are in this moment, and that is enough. This does not mean settling or giving up on improvement. It means accepting your starting point so completely that you can work with reality as it is, rather than fighting against it. As you continue your healing journey, remember that the destination is not some future moment when you will finally be well enough, good enough, enlightened enough. The destination is here, in this moment, in the simple act of being present with what is. Every moment of presence is a moment of coming home. Every breath taken with awareness is a breath of wholeness. Every gesture of self-compassion is a recognition of your inherent worthiness. Every release of grasping is a taste of freedom. The goal is not elsewhere. It is right here, available in every moment, waiting for you to recognize it. The Buddhist path of healing ultimately reveals that what you thought you needed to heal from is not what you are. You are not your illness. You are not your pain. You are not your symptoms. You are not even your body, though you care for your body with great tenderness. You are the awareness that knows all of these, the consciousness that remains when all content changes, the Buddha nature that has never been sick, never been broken, never been anything less than completely whole. This recognition is not the end of your healing journey, but its true beginning. From this place of fundamental wellness, you can address relative illness with wisdom, compassion, and skillful means. You can seek appropriate treatment. You can practice meditation and healing techniques. You can make lifestyle changes that support health. But you do all of this not from desperation or fear, but from wisdom and love. You care for your body not because you are broken, but because you recognize this body as a precious vehicle for expressing your fundamental nature in the world. As we close this exploration of Buddhist teachings on natural healing, take a moment to feel what has been stirred in you. Perhaps you feel inspired to deepen your practice. Perhaps you feel relief at recognizing that you are already whole. Perhaps you feel challenged by teachings that ask you to relate differently to your suffering. Whatever you feel, honor it. Bring presence to it. Meet it with compassion. Let it teach you. Remember that healing is not a destination you reach, but a journey you live, moment by moment, breath by breath. Every moment of presence is healing. Every gesture of kindness toward yourself is healing. Every release of grasping is healing. Every recognition of your fundamental nature is healing. You do not have to wait until some future moment to be well. You can touch wellness right now, in this moment, by simply being present with what is. The Buddhist path of natural healing offers you tools, practices, and wisdom that have supported countless beings over thousands of years. But ultimately, the healing you seek cannot come from these teachings. It can only come from within you, from your own commitment to practice, from your willingness to show up for yourself day after day, from your courage to face difficulty with presence and compassion, from your wisdom in recognizing your fundamental nature. The teachings are a finger pointing at the moon. Do not mistake the finger for the moon itself. Look where the finger points. Discover directly in your own experience the healing that has always been present, waiting for you to come home. May you be healthy in body. May you be at peace in mind. May you recognize your fundamental wholeness. May you live with the wisdom and compassion that flow naturally from this recognition. May all beings everywhere discover the healing that comes from awakening to their true nature. May all beings be free from suffering. May all beings know the peace that passes understanding. Your healing journey continues from here, not as a burden to carry, but as a path to walk with awareness, presence, and an open heart. Each step is sacred. Each breath is medicine. Each moment is an opportunity to come home to the wholeness you are and have always been. Walk this path with confidence, knowing that you carry within you everything you need for healing. Trust your Buddha nature, trust your fundamental wellness, trust the process, and above all, be kind to yourself along the way. This is the path of Buddhist natural healing, not a rejection of the body or denial of illness, but a radical acceptance of what is combined with wise action to support wellness at all levels, all held in the recognition that your deepest nature has never been sick and can never be harmed. This is the medicine that transcends all medicine. This is the healing that embraces all of life, pleasant and unpleasant, health and illness, living and dying, as manifestations of the one truth. That awareness itself, what you truly are, is eternally whole, eternally free, eternally at peace. Come home to this truth. Rest in this wholeness. Live from this recognition. And may your life be a testament to the healing power of awakening to who you truly are.